Why not lead off with the comment that was first left in the live chat to start the show? The Pac-12, is that like still a thing? Let's pretend that it is tonight. Welcome to the Voice of College Football on a Sunday night, and we are kicking off Power 5 week. Power 5 week. Each live stream, we are going to highlight a separate Power 5 conference, and for the time being, until further notice, the Pac-12 in football is still a Power 5 conference. Still a Power 5 conference. And we will take a look. We have to go all the way back to 2016, of course. The last time the Pac-12 made a college football playoff appearance, Washington. Remember the Huskies? Remember Jake Browning? Probably not. Jake Browning, Washington, 2016. He was a sophomore, just a pup. And Washington made the playoffs, lost to Alabama. Oregon, and the Pac-12 still has this over the Big 12 in the 8-year playoff history. The Pac-12 has won a playoff game, Oregon, thanks to Oregon over Florida State at the Rose Bowl in 2014, and advanced to a national championship game. The Big 12 is 0-4, meaning Oklahoma's 0-4. Everybody is 0-0 elsewhere in the Big 12. So it's been Oklahoma or nobody else in the Big 12. So it's the one conference where only one team has made the college football playoff. The Pac-12 with 2. And does USC make it this year? Again, welcome into our conversation on the Pac-12. When we take your calls, you can call about anything. It doesn't have to be about the Pac-12. Whatever's on your mind concerning college football, we will talk about it. But we are highlighting the Pac-12 first and foremost. So quick notes on the way the conference race shapes up. Utah, big date in week 1, September 3rd at Florida in the Swamp. Cameron Rising at quarterback, of course, took over in week 3 last season, and the Utes never looked back, marching to a Pac-12 championship. It's first in school history and first ever Rose Bowl. This offense under Cam Rising, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks, was third in the nation in third down, ninth in the nation in third down offense. 2 of the best tight ends in the nation. They caught almost 100 balls and 14 touchdowns. Their rush rate on offense in terms of explosive plays, led by Tapian Thomas with 21 touchdowns, massive. And you know Utah's front 7 on defense will be stout. It always is. It wasn't early in 21. They came on late and were dominant in the front 7 as they typically are. Utah with the Pac-12 championship under Kyle Whittingham in his 18th season looks to make it back-to-back. USC, of course, the darlings of the conference, both historically and in the here and now, they are making the biggest waves. And they should. They're in California. Lincoln Riley, of course, one of the top coaches in college football, maybe a top 10 coach. Maybe he's number 11. Wink, wink to Tim. Caleb Williams, of course, one of the better playmakers at quarterback in college football. Mario Williams, we know the influx of talent that has descended on Los Angeles from elsewhere. Travis Dye from Oregon. Of course, the Williams boys, as we just mentioned, coming in from Oklahoma. Jordan Addison from Pitt, arguably the best wide receiver in all of college football with 17 touchdowns last year, the Fred Biletnikoff Award winner. Defense, though, those transfer portal additions may mean more in the long run. Probably taking a deplorable, awful bottom of the 3 Pac-12 defense and making it workable. Probably a top 5 to 6, top half of the league defense this year. Eric Gentry will make a push at outside linebacker coming in from Arizona State. Of course, Shane Lee from Alabama had a big season for the Tide in 19. Latrell McCutcheon locking down a quarter from Oklahoma. How about UCLA? 8-4 last year after 2 dismal seasons under, of course, Chip Kelly. And the Bruins, though, if you really look at the results, they played well against Oregon. They played well against Fresno State, but they lost those games in the last minute of the game. They did not beat a good football team all year. LSU would be the most talented, but UCLA did not beat a winning team last year. They lost to everybody with a winning record, beat all the bad teams. UCLA 8-4. Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming back. Zach Charbonnet scored 13 touchdowns last year, over 1,000 yards rushing for UCLA. They lost their top 3 receivers to the Bruins. Mitchell Agood is one of the better players on the defensive side of the ball in the Pac-12. They pick up Hawaii's number 1 tackler and Dario Muasau. That's UCLA. Arizona State, the trajectory is obviously down, down, down. They went to a bowl game at 8-5, lost to Wisconsin, lose their quarterback Jaden Daniels to LSU. Emory Jones transfers in from Florida. He will probably start, although Paul Tyson, backup quarterback to Tua, Mack, and others at Alabama, also transferred to ASU. Arizona State lost basically any kind of playmakers they had. Top 4 receivers gone, top 3 running backs gone, and of course the NCAA violations or allegations hanging over the program's head collectively. Colorado quarterback Brandon Lewis comes back, 10 touchdowns, 3 picks. Brady Russell is their top wide receiver. He comes back, but Colorado, one of the worst offenses in college football last season, one of the bottom 5 in FBS. And they did little to correct that under Carl Durrell in Boulder. Then finally, Arizona. Laughable how bad the Wildcats have been in recent years. Jedd Fisch, can he coach? We don't know if he can coach. We're going to start to find that out because it's suddenly now becoming his program. This is his 2nd season. They only won 1 game, and that was in the Pac-12. They're 1-20 in their last 21 Pac-12 games. They do pick up a capable quarterback, though, in Washington State transfer and Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year as a freshman Offensive Player of the Year, Jaden DeLora, 23 touchdowns, 11 picks. They lose all their running backs and receivers. That might be a good thing at Arizona. Again, we'll see if Jedd Fisch can get the job done. Actually, they bring back the running backs. They lose the receivers at Arizona, if you're going to pay any attention to the Wildcats this year. Let's go to the North Division, but of course the divisions are basically meaningless this season. They're just placeholders. The top 2 seeds, not the division winners, the top 2 seeds make the championship game this year. Oregon, the Ducks, Dan Lanning, of course, the new head coach coming in from Georgia. He was recruiting as defensive coordinator at Georgia and set himself up for a big offseason. Did well on the recruiting path. He's going to most likely choose Bo Nix as the starting quarterback over Jay Butterfield and Ty Thompson, 2 very talented backups. Ty Thompson, 5-star. We've got an Oregon Live coming up later this week. Keep posted on dates and times. We're going to do an Oregon Fall Camp live stream, so check that out. Travis Dye's going to USC. CJ Verdell off to the NFL. Kayvon Thibodeau, one of the most talented, maybe not one of the best, most talented and most accounted for defenders in the country, gone to the NFL. Noah Sewell, though, is a star in the making. 114 tackles last year. Justin Flo, oft injured, but if he can stay healthy, he's a star in the making as well. Bennett Williams almost missed the entire 21 season. He's back at safety. He's a top player as well. Oregon, some people are starting to sleep on Oregon with the emergence of USC and all that talent, and Utah being a mainstay, coming back with a experienced quarterback now in Cam Rising, but don't sleep on the Ducks. Oregon State, Jonathan Smith. We talked about the Beavers last night as one of my, I don't even want to repeat this, dark, ridiculously dark horse for the college football playoff. 6-7 last year, made a bowl game for the first time in 8 years, lost to Utah State, but still made a bowl game. Jonathan Smith is one of the most underrated coaches in college football. Chance Nolan is not guaranteed the quarterback spot at Oregon State, but most likely will get it. Dual threat guy. They've got a tremendous running game. Offensive line, backs, really good. BJ Baylor. Receivers not coming back. They lose productivity at wide receiver. The defense was bad against the pass last year, but Omar Spates is one of the top tacklers in the Pac-12. He's back for the Beavers. Stanford, the plight of Stanford football. Can't think of a program in the past 10 or 12 years that has taken more of a nosedive than Stanford, because for Texas, it just, they went from BCS championship game appearance to 7-5 every year. Just being pretty mediocre and irrelevant. Stanford just kept taking steps down. This is the team that dominated the 2016 Rose Bowl to finish top 5 in the nation. Now here we are 5 years later, 6 years later, and Stanford is pretty bad. 11-19 last 3 years under David Shaw, even with one of the most NFL-ready quarterbacks in Tanner McKee. The NFL scouts love Tanner McKee. They have an offensive line to Stanford, and of course, in Stanford's heyday, they lived on front seven on defense and offensive line play, leading for guys like Christian McCaffrey and Bryce Love in the ground game. They have 5 starters back along the offensive front of Stanford with 102 career starts. Their top 3 wide receivers are back. Benjamin Urasek is the latest of the tight end U-type players at Stanford. He had 43 catches last year. Cal, why does Justin Wilcox not win? Cal, great stat here, 12 consecutive seasons in the Pac-12 in which they have not finished with a winning record, either a losing season or a 500 season in the Pac-12. 12 consecutive seasons for Justin Wilcox and Cal. Jack Plummer comes in at quarterback from Purdue, 26 touchdowns, 10 picks in his 13-start career. And again, Justin Wilcox, known for defense, great defensive coordinator at Wisconsin and other stops, noticeably Tennessee and others, but just not good there. Jacob Sermon, though, is a really good player at linebacker, comes in from Washington as a transfer, 91 tackles last year. Washington, by the way, Kalen DeBoer from Fresno State. Michael Penix battling Dylan for the starting job there at Washington. You would think it would go to Penix, and Washington needs to get back to bowl status and upper division status in the Pac-12. And finally, Washington State, you would think that this may be a rough year for Jake Dickard. Check out our interview with the Washington State head coach from about 6 weeks ago. Jake Dickard was a fun interview. Check it out. Just search it right here on the channel. What he did was pretty remarkable in 2021 in leading this team to a bowl game, as he had to take over the team midway through the season from Nick Rolovich with the vaccine controversy going on, and he lost half the coaching staff. And of course, Cam Ward is the big story at Washington State, 47 touchdowns at Incarnate Word. Their top 2 tacklers for Washington State come back as well. All right, that's how I set up the Pac-12. We will have our predictions before the season kicks off, of course, on the Pac-12, the Power 5, the playoff spots, everything right here at the Voice of College Football. And of course, I will not, even though I'm tempted to, go backwards in the chat. I have been warned, I've been told, I have obeyed. Do not go backwards in the chat. I will not do that. I will just go with the comments that are right in front of me. I don't see anything right there, but I do see Hummus Heroes here, and Billy's here. Dave is here. Good to see you, and others. All right, we will leave the link in the chat. Give us a call if you want to talk college football. It does not have to be about the Pac-12. But we are going to feature a different Power 5 conference. And for the time being, the Pac-12 is still a Power 5 conference. And we are featuring the Pac-12 tonight. So there's my take on the Pac-12. Please give me a call. The link, I should say, we no longer have a number. The link is in the live chat there, and we will talk college football right there. Grab the Amazon link. Speaking of links, the most important link is to grab the Amazon link down in the description section of all the videos. Put it somewhere where you will remember it when you're shopping on Amazon. and help us build the channel that way. So we love your contributions, but think of it this way. You can contribute without spending a penny when you shop on Amazon if you use the link that we provide. There you go. Doesn't cost you a penny, same shopping experience. You just go on Amazon through our link, and it works that way. Join us on Discord as well. It's just a big chat room. That's what Discord is. I didn't know what it was like 8 months ago myself. So Discord is just a big chat room. Sign up on Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV, grab the link when I send it to you. So you sign up on Patreon, search MarkRogersTV. You sign up right there. I send you the link with a nice little letter saying you're special. Hi, good to see you. Glad to have you. Welcome aboard college football, voice of college football community. And I send you the link and you're all set. From there on, you are set. You've got your entryway into the live chat 24/7, 365 to talk college football with Eric, with Tim, with Ronan, with Exploring with Ben, with Jordan Bowman, and many others. Also, we are looking for post-game hosts. So if you're not aware, we did post-game for almost all our team channels last season. And granted, I jumped on this a little bit late this year. I was well prepared back in May last season to ramp up. It hit me sometime in May that, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have post-game shows on all our team channels? And we delivered. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, all had post-game shows. But a lot of people couldn't make it this year. So I'm trying to reconstruct some of our post-game teams here at the Voice of College Football. So if you're interested, basically, these are the requirements. Know football, talk reasonably well, and be responsible and show up. Those are the requirements here at the Voice of College Football. And of course, there's more to it than that. But I actually talked to a few folks this afternoon. Had some nice conversations with some folks that are interested. So please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail if you would like to be a post-game host for one of our team channels. And even if we don't have a team channel and you want to do a post-game, we can still accommodate you because, hey, we've got a main channel and we are right here. So, for example, Arkansas, Minnesota, Kansas State, Stanford, those are teams, UCLA, that do not have team channels right now. We can still do post-game. If you really want to do post-game for a team that does not have a team channel, shoot, NC State may have a banner year. Pitt, Wake Forest, Oklahoma State, Baylor. If you want to do post-game for any of the team channels or teams that we do not represent yet with team channels, we can still accommodate you because that's why we've got a big main channel right here at the Voice of College Football. So give me a shot at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. I have left the link in the live chat, so please give me a call on college football. And again, the Pac-12 is the focus, but we can talk about whatever you would like. Predictions will be coming. Predictions will be coming. You will get, when you sign up on Patreon, not just my predictions weekly, but you will get the predictions of some of your favorite media contributors. Tony Gerdeman, Steve Hellwagon, Kevin Noon, Steve Days, The Wholesome One, Corey Brada, and others. So please sign up on Patreon. Tide Guys here. We've got a conversation coming up Monday with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama on the Tide, so be looking out for that. We also plan to do an Oregon live show this week, so hit that bell for the notifications to keep up with that on when we will deliver our Oregon live show this week. CKS, good point. Out-of-conference games are more important to the Pac-12 than any other conference because of perception, because of reality in past seasons. Would it be fair to wipe away all the results of the past and forget about them because it's a new season? We should not be judging these teams and these conferences based on what happened in the past. Yes, but human nature is human nature, and the Pac-12 has a stigma. The Pac-12 has had its conference champions typically lose the non-conference games. Utah last year lost to San Diego State and Baylor, and BYU. 2020, let's forget 2020. Who won? Oregon. They went 4-3. Forget 2020. They only played 7 games, and that's with a bowl game and a conference championship game. They played 5 games in the regular season. So forget 2020, especially for the Pac-12. But again, last season, BYU went into the Pac-12 and won 5 games, right? 5? Arizona, Arizona State, USC, Utah, and somebody else, Oregon State. So Utah won the Pac-12 championship, but they could not beat BYU or San Diego State. Not a good look for the Pac-12. 2019, Oregon won the Pac-12, won the Rose Bowl, but they lost to Auburn. 2018, Washington won the Pac-12, went to the Rose Bowl, lost to Auburn. 2017, USC. No. 2017, yeah, USC was the Pac-12 champion and went to the Cotton Bowl because of the college football playoff situation with the Rose Bowl. But 2017, USC won the Pac-12. What happened out of conference? They lost to Notre Dame. Then they lost a bowl game to Ohio State. 2016, that was the last time that the Pac-12 champion went unscathed in non-conference play, and big deal, Washington beat Rutgers. So it's been a long time since the Pac-12 champion won its big non-conference games. Now, the big non-conference game last year was Oregon, Ohio State, and the Ducks pulled through. And that was the only thing, that was the only game, that was the only performance that kept the Pac-12 somewhat relevant the entire season until Oregon lost to Utah, was that Oregon had that win against Ohio State. And even though they lost to Stanford, and that was ugly, the Ducks were still in the running for a playoff appearance until late in the season. That was the game that helped them hang on. So if Utah would go to the Swamp and lose, and Oregon most likely is going to lose to Georgia, it's important. This would be a favorable outcome for the Pac-12 in week 1. Reasonably. Now, get 2 wins against the SEC, that would be phenomenal. And it could happen, but it's more likely and reasonable that if Utah could go to Florida, win that game, and hope Florida's good this year, 8-4. And then Oregon plays Georgia close. Be tough, be there, be in it in the fourth quarter. Then Georgia's 10-2, 11-1, going to an SEC championship game, possibly to the playoff. And Oregon can say in the Pac-12, we stood toe-to-toe, basically in a road game against Georgia, and we were right there. Other big non-conference games, of course, are the games against Notre Dame by Stanford and USC late in the season at the Coliseum on Thanksgiving weekend. That could be a monumental game, both for Notre Dame and for USC. Wouldn't that be special? Wouldn't that be phenomenal if that was a marquee game with college football playoff implications for both teams? Even if it's for just one team and the other one's a spoiler, that would be cool. But if both teams, when was the last time both Notre Dame and USC upon kickoff were in national championship contention? 2005, right? 2005 would have been the last time, I believe, that Notre Dame and USC, possibly 2006. USC barely missed the playoff, and Notre Dame did go to the Sugar Bowl that year. So maybe 06, but 05 was the famous Bush Push game. and would have been the last time that both Notre Dame and USC were in national championship contention. So those are the big games. UCLA does not play a big non-conference game. They play 3 ridiculous FBS kind of games, or FCS. Just group of 5, nothing. South Alabama and whoever, Alabama State, whoever they play, UCLA. It's awful. And the assortment of BYU matchups and the assortment of Mountain West matchups that the Pac-12 could only win 7 of 13 against last year. Beat the Mountain West. Beat somebody good, to CKS's point right there. Split those 2 and play tough in the other game. That would be a good recipe for the start of the Pac-12 season. I will leave the link one more time in the live chat below. Irish Natty within 3 years. Notre Dame is not losing to USC. That's the worst take ever. SC's lines are trash. That's the worst take ever. Irish Natty within 3 years. These are the kind of comments that are rather annoying because basically that wasn't the worst take ever. Your hearing loss would be the worst ever. When did I ever say USC was going to beat Notre Dame? First of all, you will never hear me make a prediction 3 or 4 months before the game. I am not the moron who would make predictions 3 and 4 months before a football game. So I don't do that. First of all, I just talked about, wouldn't it be nice if there were implications on both sides of the Notre Dame USC matchup at the Coliseum the last weekend of the season? Unless maybe you're talking to somebody in the chat. If that, I apologize. I usually take these comments and think you're talking to me, but I forget that you guys sometimes talk to each other. I guess that's what that's things for. Exploring with Ben and Sam. Where is that treat helmet I wasted money on? Wasted money? It's back here all the time. I thought it would show up on the I can only go with so many Pac-12 helmets tonight. I guess we're going to knock Utah out of the way. Make you feel good. Thanks for the helmet, Exploring with Ben and Sam. There it is. Yes, there it is. Rob, thanks for showing up for the Texas show. We had Matthew Miller, of course, and D4 Sports did a fine job on the Texas show tonight. We appreciate them and would like all of you to support our Texas channel. If you love the horns, get on over there. We deliver content on a regular basis, and also Texas post game after every Texas game with Matthew. One Scoop John is enjoying all the call-in shows. Well, I guess this isn't one of them. No calls tonight. Franklin, thank you so much for the feedback. They did a great job. That's good to hear. Search, One Scoop John. Mark made fun of our out-of-conference schedule again. I am once again blaming you for my shame. Oh, yes. That's not UCLA's fault. Michigan backed out. So I will make fun of UCLA's schedule with a disclaimer, but Michigan's schedule is awful as well out of conference, but they have no excuse. As I mentioned in the Florida-Utah preview that I posted this morning, if you want a good solid 11 or 12 minutes on Utah, Florida, check out the video I posted today and noted that Florida has not played a Pac-12 team since 1989. That's college football for you. That is college football scheduling when you allow the teams to schedule themselves. Florida has not played a Pac-12 team in 33 years. How pathetic is that? Florida has also not played an on-campus game out of state non-conference since 1991 when they went to Syracuse. Again, pathetic. But that's what we get when we allow teams to do whatever they want. When we let Notre Dame not join a conference and let them do whatever they want, when we let teams schedule their out-of-conference games, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get Baylor not scheduling a ranked team out of conference in the last 25 years. It's been 25 years since Baylor played a ranked team out of conference. Rob says, Mark, when you reverse your camera, it makes your face look mangled to me. Thanks for keeping it clockwise. I just think basically, Rob, on those particular days, my face was mangled. And actually, I don't even know what you mean. What basically is happening here is the camera in the laptop is what's being used now, as opposed to my, I won't even try to show it. So I don't have my camera set up because I don't have my mic set up because I don't any longer have a desk that I can screw my mic crane into. So we're either going to purchase a different mic holder, but I hate to have a mic like sitting on the desk in front of me. I had that crane with the mic, but the crane had to be clamped and screwed into a desk that could accommodate it, like a wood cork board type of desk. And that one was falling apart. So I pitched it in the trash and now I've got to replace it or do something else with my mic. Maybe I'll do a little lav mic. But so I'm not even using my camera. We are using StreamYard to take these calls, and that's why we got a Will right here.
Hey, Mark, do you want to go over the Pac-12 out-of-conference schedule?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Would you be like, are you like, can we go over the Pac-12 out-of-conference schedule to see?
Yes, we can. That's why we're here tonight. Heck yeah. Let's do it.
So in week one, TCU and Colorado is one that the Pac-12 can win. I think that's possible just because, I mean, they're both awful teams for Power 5 sake, but I think
TCU in Colorado or Cal?
TCU and Colorado.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a winnable game for the Pac-12. I mean, they're both.
Sure it is. I think TCU is going to be down. They've been down the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Colorado's been down the past 10 years, but
going to try to keep up with you here. Keep going.
And we're going. Another one that could be bad for the Pac-12 is Arizona going to San Diego State. I want Jedfish to do well. I want the more good Power 5 teams, the merrier, but I think San Diego State will win.
Are you just taking out for the Big 12 or for the Pac-12 tonight, or is this like sincere? Or you're just kind of playing the role of Pac-12 foil tonight?
I'm not. Like, I'm going to say they're like, I'm not trying. I mean, I'm trying to be like somewhat serious, but I do think that Arizona State, that since the game's at San Diego State, I just think that's difficult for Arizona to win.
Maybe we should do a prediction video or live stream on Power 5 conference records against everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. I want Utah to beat Florida. I think that one's also a coin flip. But I'm leaning towards Utah just because I think they'll be more better. I mean, I'm not saying Billy Napier's a bad coach, but I feel like he has to implement his system. So
you've got a coach who is coaching that program, that team for the very first time, new coordinators, new position coaches, all of it's brand new versus Utah. The process in place, the terminology, everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows what the deal is. They've been doing it forever. They know who they are.
Another one that I think that the Pac-12 will win this one, but this is another game against a good Group of 5 team is Boise State and Oregon State. I do think that the Beavers showed a lot of improvement. I think Jonathan Williams took a big first step last year, although their game against Utah State left a lot to be desired for the Beavers. But I do think that they'll beat Boise State at home. And that place got loud versus Washington. Like I was rewatching Boise State's games, and like they had an atmosphere there. So I think that they can ride that to a win over the Broncos.
You were rewatching Boise State's games from last year.
No, Oregon State.
Oregon State's games from last year.
Just for fun. I don't know. I got bored. I just watched old college.
See, these are the kind of things that I think about all the time that I never get to. I would love to sit down and watch Oregon State's games from last year just for the heck of it. Mm-hmm. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So that's week 1.
Week 2, I think Washington State, Wisconsin's a big test for the Cougars. Like, I think the Cougars had a good year last year. They finally won the Apple Cup over a awful Washington team. But I think that this game could be closer than people expect. But I don't know. Like, Camp Randall wasn't that great last year for Wisconsin. Like, they did lose to Michigan. They did lose to Penn State. But, like, I just don't think Washington State's at the level of the teams that Wisconsin lost to at home. So
bingo.
I'm leaning Badgers. Definitely leaning Badgers.
I'm glad you said that before I had to.
Yeah. And then if this was Arizona State before everything fell apart, I'm like, okay, they have a chance to win in Oklahoma State. But, like, everything collapsed for the Sun Devils. I can't see them beating Oklahoma State. And then Mississippi State at Arizona. Like, I just think that Will Rogers is going to have put up a lot of points.
Yeah,
and
he might not throw an incompletion.
Yeah.
You missed a good one.
I missed a good one. Colorado Air Force.
Well, you missed 2 good ones.
What was the other one?
2 decent ones here. Yeah, Colorado.
Oh, did I not talk about Oregon, Georgia?
Oregon State at Fresno State.
Oh yeah, Oregon State at Fresno State. That game could also be close.
This could be an ugly week for the Pac-12 right here.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, they could lose 2, 3, 4, 5 games and beat no one significant.
Do you think that Jeff Tedford can like turn it around and then eventually get another big time head coaching job? Or do you think he's just
Yeah, that's a good place for him to be, to do that.
Because I remember like they always play the good teams close, like even if they didn't win. Like they at least like even during Oregon's not undefeated because they lost to Auburn, but that was like Cal was winning that game.
Oh, wait a minute. You're talking about you mentioned Jeff Tedford. You're talking about Justin Wilcox at Cal. Or are you talking about Tedford at Fresno State?
Tedford at Fresno State.
Okay.
Now I was saying like when Tedford was at Cal in 2010, they played Oregon. They were beating Oregon in that game. But yeah, like this is just one of those weeks where it could just I'm not trying to be negative towards the Pac-12, but it could all fall apart. I hope it doesn't. I hope we have the gaps are closed a bit between the Pac-12 and the Power 5 because I just think it's
you
more
don't
fun.
Need to be negative. You don't have to intentionally be negative toward the Pac-12. You just need to tell the truth, and it's negative.
Yeah. And then just looking at week 3, Cal Notre Dame, like I'm not being biased here. I just think Notre Dame is a better team than Cal. I think Minnesota has a better team than Colorado. BYU Oregon could be interesting. Like I know my Duck friends Eric and Ben won't like this, but like I think that BYU could go to Austin and win. I think that's realistic that could happen. Although I just think the talent with the Ducks will win them that game, but I do think it could come down to a last possession.
Washington hosts Michigan State.
That's a big game for the Huskies. Like if they can win that game, I can't think of the name of their new coach. I should be.
Kalen DeBoer.
Kalen DeBoer, yeah, but like that could be huge for Kalen DeBoer to beat the Spartans. And I don't think they'll be as good. I don't think they'll be like. I'm not saying they'll be like a 7-win team, but like being a 11-win team again, that's not going to happen. But I think they could be like an 8 or 9-win team, the Spartans. So I just think that they'll be better than Washington. Do you think that do you agree with me, Mark, or do you think that Washington?
I think that game has upset potential.
Yeah.
I posted a upset special video, and I included Washington hosting Michigan State.
Mm-hmm. Now another. I'm not just saying this to laugh at USC, but I think that Fresno State could also if they could beat Oregon State, I think they could come in with confidence at the Coliseum and
they could
put up a fight. But I just don't think that they can keep up with USC's offense, if I'm being realistic.
And then it appears as though, except for the Notre Dame games against Stanford and USC, that's it for the out-of-conference games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you go over under 1.5 bowl wins for the Pac-12?
I am going to say that let's say they get 6 bowl appearances and they've got to go 2-4. They have to get some favorable matchups to some degree. And they always play a group of 5. They're going to play a group of 5 in like the Las Vegas Bowl or the new Jimmy Kimmel Bowl where they played Utah State last year. Yes. They get easy bowl matchups.
Yeah. And they still lost them last year. Like, what happened in those games? Did they just come in and think that they were going to win and not try? Oh.
They should know better.
It's just head scratching.
None of those teams should be taking anyone for granted. Mm-hmm. Just looking at that, if we just took just the Power 5 games, I'm going to guarantee that the Pac-12 is going to be under 500 against the Power 5 and possibly under 500 even against, I don't know about the entire group of 5, but let's say the Mountain West and the Power 5.
And they very well could have another loss to the FCS. Like Arizona State, Northern Arizona.
Yeah.
Northern Arizona beat Arizona last year. They could come in with confidence into Tempe.
Yeah, they lost 2 last year.
Mm-hmm. And then, Washington and Montana was the other loss.
Washington State has a good string of losing FCS games.
Oh, yeah.
They do that quite often themselves.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Washington State's gotten over from that hump, though.
So does Cal. They do that. They've got a game against UC Davis. Look out for that one.
So Justin Wilcox has dropped games against FCS?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Sure he has.
North Dakota State, Arizona. That's a loss for. I'm penciling that in as a most likely a loss to an FCS team.
Last season, Cal lost to Nevada, not an FCS, but lost to Nevada, lost to TCU. In 2019, they barely beat North Texas. Year before when did they lose to? They've got a fairly recent loss against a Cal Poly kind of game. Anyway, anything else, Will?
Also, I'm gonna say, I know people in the chat were excited about the USC Notre Dame game to see Marcus Freeman, one of the top 5 defensive minds of college football, take on Lincoln Riley, one of the top 5 minds in defensive football. But I just see Notre Dame, I'm not saying it's going to be like the 2017 game, I mean, that would be funny, especially hopping on with those calls with Tony and Tim. If that happens, what happens? But I feel like we'll just dominate the line of scrimmage against SC. Like, I think maybe in like future years, once they get good offensive and defensive lines in, like that they can compete. But like, I just don't see. I mean, I guess I can see a way how USC wins, but
sure. But what you're talking about right there is one of the reasons why Notre Dame has a good shot against Ohio State.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If Ohio State is not tougher defensively than they were last year, Notre Dame is going to push them all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Notre Dame just has to be able to run the ball very well, even without Logan Diggs. They need their Thunder. Like, we need our Thunder, Audric Estime, and our Lightning, Chris Tyree, to have a good game. All right. Well,
I'm excited. It'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm. I never thought I would wait for. I never thought I would be this impatient for Nebraska to play Northwestern, but I am.
I think they play at noon, and then I think we've got another game sometime midday, Illinois, Wyoming, and then late night we've got Hawaii Vandy.
Hawaii Vandy is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love week 0 because I watch some teams that I'm not going to get a chance to watch the entire season. I won't watch Hawaii play the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Or Vandy.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no reason to.
All right. Well, I'll be lurking in the chat, so if anyone wants to talk some football, you can at me.
At will.
Yeah, at me. And join the Patreon and join the Discord. We have fun there.
Sell it, Will.
Mm-hmm. We have fun there. If someone really wants to join, I may pay one person's subscription.
Will, that's not necessary. That's very nice of you, but anyway, I'll let you guys decide whatever you decide. You guys run that thing now.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost out of my hands.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll have a StreamYard to chat after this.
You guys have taken it over.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off. Hopefully Tim or some other knucklehead can pop in.
There you go. Thanks, Will.
See ya.
We'll see you. Voice of College Football, our Discords at patreon.com. Search MarkRogersTV. Sign up right there. I get you the link and a nifty little welcome letter that is worth the membership in and of itself. Falconer Jones, where are you? Shoot, I lost your super chats. Bam, here we go. Miami will beat all its Pac-12 opponents in 2022. I have no doubt. Falconer Jones, you are right again. And, of course, Falconer Jones coming back with start the GoFundMe for Mark's new studio. Amen to that. In addition to funding the new studio, we need to fund a studio. What would that be? A studio designer? So I not only need the items to build a nice studio, it would be the designer to tell me how to do it. A designer that knows TV, because you got to know TV angles. You need to know camera angles. I guess I'm old school. They don't have to be TV because online streaming's been around for so long that some people have never worked in TV, but they know. So, for example, especially when my regular camera is set up, the camera angle when there is just me completely changes when I bring somebody on. And then when I bring two people on, it changes again and again and again and again and again. I'd actually like to have two cameras. One would be more of a close-up, not a close-up, but something like that. And then maybe three cameras. Have kind of a side shot and then have a up top studio view from the ceiling. That's right. All right. Elsewhere in the chat. Charisse, I can't wait until September 3rd when Ohio State has their first game of the 22 college football season against Notre Dame. I am so excited. One Scoop John, proud to be a member of the Knuckleheads at the Voice of College Football. I think I called these guys Knuckleheads maybe twice or three times, very affectionately, I might add. And if they want it to stick, hey. Super chat coming in. Appreciate that from Roger Dirk II. Roger Dirk II. I believe this is the first time I have seen your handle here at the Voice of College Football, and you know what that means. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, Roger. Appreciate you being here. Roger Dirk II. Would love to know how long you've been watching, and of course, who do you root for? Ready for Oregon, Georgia, neutral site in Atlanta? Question mark, exclamation mark. Are we ready? We are ready. I think I got that out of both of those. I'm ready. That's a 3:30 game. So, we've got the game times for week 1. It's never too early to try to figure out how I'm going to take these games in. So week 0's nice because they're all spread out. And so on Saturday, August 27th, week 0, let's start there. At noon, hey, for a half hour, I'm going to catch a little Western Kentucky Austin Peay for a half hour on CBS Sportsnet before Nebraska Northwestern kickoff at 12:30. Watch that game. Then I'm going to be right here with all of you. And then we will be keeping an eye mainly on Illinois hosting Wyoming on the Big Ten Network at 4, although Mountain West fans, you got Utah State hosting UConn and Jim Moore's debut with the Huskies, the mighty Huskies, on FS1 at 4 Eastern. And, of course, Florida State fans, we've got many here. Our Florida State channel, please subscribe. ACC Network, Florida State hosting the Dukes of Duquesne. Another CBS Sportsnet game, Florida Atlantic hosting Charlotte. All the games and all the teams that I never mentioned during the regular season because I'm not going to talk about 40 different games. But it's week 0. There are actually 8 games on week 0. 9 games. I really care to watch 3. Nebraska Northwestern, Illinois Wyoming, and then late night 10:30. It'll be the only time the entire football season that I will probably say, you know what, we don't need to do a primetime show tonight. It's only week 0. And I will kick back and enjoy myself watching the Hawaii Vandy game at 10:30 at night to be over at about 2 a.m., 2:15. So that's week 0. That's easy to navigate, but week 1 is not. Thursday night, even on Thursday of week 1, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I now have the Pac-12 network, by the way. 10 games to navigate to try to watch. Okay, we'll be realistic, and I'll tell you what I'm going to the priority, there are two priorities on that Thursday night. I like on Thursday and Friday when there's a game that kicks off at like 6 p.m. And it's usually UConn and New Mexico State. They kick off at 6 o'clock Eastern, and it's on CBS Sportsnet, and you can watch it for an hour before somebody legitimate starts. I think that's cool. But we don't have any such game except for St. Francis taking on Akron on ESPN3. If that game reaches more than double digits in viewers for ESPN3, I would be shocked. But at 7 o'clock Eastern on week 1, that Thursday night, we've got Ball State at Tennessee on the SEC network. Then we've got, of course, the Backyard Brawl. Pitt, West Virginia, ESPN, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm locked in on Pitt, West Virginia. However, 1 hour later, Penn State and Purdue. If I could only watch one game on Thursday night, it would be Penn State and Purdue. And then late night that night, even though I sacrificed my late night Pac-12 Mountain West viewing to talk college football with all of you late night, we will have on the side screens over here a bunch of crappy games. Minnesota, New Mexico State's on the Big Ten Network at 9, Arizona State, Northern Arizona on the Pac-12 Network at 10, and Fresno State and Cal Poly on FS1 at 10:30. Okay, Friday, the games that matter. The best 7 o'clock game on Friday, September 2nd is probably Virginia Tech, Old Dominion. Of course, the Monarchs upset mighty Virginia Tech a few years ago with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. And then we've got the game of the night would be 8 o'clock, Illinois, Indiana, 8 Eastern FS1. There's a late night ESPN game on Friday, TCU, Colorado. All right. Let's figure out our Saturday viewing. And I go with 3 screens. I've tried 4. I could do 4. I could actually do 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 screens there, 2 laptops. I could do 5 screens, but I can't. I'm too old to try to. 3's max. I really watch 2 games, and the third one is catch a play once in a while. That's the best I can hope for, realistically. So on Saturday, September 3rd, here's the TV lineup. At noon, my game of choice to start is probably either Boston College Rutgers or East Carolina NC State. That could be a decent game. And then, yeah, those are the 2 games I'm going to be watching primarily, with, of course, an eye on Michigan, Colorado State, because it's Michigan. Then at 3:30 Eastern, the game of, whoa. We've got 2 good ones at 3:30. Georgia, Oregon, and Arkansas, Cincinnati. That's a tough call. So those are the 2 games I'm watching, with the third screen probably on Houston, Texas, San Antonio. All right. Then in prime time, with really no games of interest between then and prime time, BYU, South Florida, maybe. Okay, prime time, of course, at 7 o'clock, you got Florida, Utah. That game's on ESPN. So for 1 hour, no, for only a half hour, we'll watch Florida, Utah in peace by itself. No other games come close to it. And then, of course, at 7:30, Ohio State, Notre Dame, with a side monitor on Mississippi State, Memphis. Syracuse, Louisville, that'll get a second monitor as well on the ACC network at 8. And 2 late night starts, and this is the decent one, would be Oregon State, Boise State. So that's week 1. That's how I'm going to plan. Then, of course, it's great. Sunday night, Monday night, you just get to watch one game, and you don't have to mess around with trying to watch 12 games at the same time with Florida State, LSU, and Clemson, Georgia Tech on Sunday and Monday night, the 4th and the 5th. There it is. The link to join the show is in the chat. Exploring with Ben and Sam, I can always count on them to say, hit the like button. Irish Natty within 3 years. Come on, Irish Natty within 3 years. I apologize for what I said before, that you might have been commenting to somebody else, and I don't even remember what it was about now. Search is going to call in at some point in the future. Doug Green, would you take Oregon with 17.5 points? Ooh, K.E. Zhao says the noon game on the 3rd needs to be App State and North Carolina. I missed that one. That's a good game. Of course, App State beat North Carolina last year before. Last year. That game is on ESPNU, North Carolina and App State. Okay. If I got 3 screens, I told you the top 2 with Michigan, Colorado State, the 3rd, just because it's Michigan and they're a top 5 to 10 team in the country, but expecting that to be a blowout early, then I would flip to App State and North Carolina. Ian from Akron says, I just don't see a Lincoln Riley defense being able to keep up, being able to compete in the Big Ten. Well, hopefully for Lincoln Riley and for USC fans, it is not going to be a Lincoln Riley defense. It's going to be an Alex Grinch defense. And if Alex Grinch is not up to the task, then it's going to be fire Alex Grinch and hire somebody who's capable of winning a Big Ten championship on defense. Alex Grinch did do a nice job with the Oklahoma defense, upgrading it 30, 40, 50 spots in the rankings, and also doing the same thing at Washington State with 2- and 3-star talent. If you look at the scoring totals and look at the yardage totals and the overall advanced metrics, the Big 12 is not as pass happy or scoring crazy as it used to be. Just is. John thinks that Alex Grinch is a joke. HR picking stuff. The Pac-12 network is like public broadcasting network. Sesame Street reruns beat them in the ratings. That might be true. Actually, that is true. However, all I know is that I now have the Pac-12 network, and I watch Pac-12 Media Days, and I got to say, the Pac-12 network being a joke is all about the distribution. It's about the marketing. The actual production was solid. It was fine. It was good. It was quality. So the production's fine. There's a difference between who watches and if you're putting out a quality product. I guarantee there are YouTube channels out there that nobody's watching that are really good. And there are YouTube channels that have 2 million subs that suck. So doesn't always go hand in hand. Return trip, Grinch can't recruit. Well, that would be the criticism right there, not necessarily the on the field portion of it. Dirk, not to backtrack, but I feel like Jim Knowles is going to improve Ohio State's defense this year. More talent than he had at Oklahoma State. Thanks, Mark GBR. Also, keep in mind, though, that yes, all that is true. But for some reason, and it would be a good question to ask Jim Knowles, why, when he went to Oklahoma State, it took 3 years, meaning the first Jim Knowles defense at Oklahoma State regressed. The second defense regressed. Then the third defense, the third season, got better and kind of got back to season one or pre-Jim Knowles levels, and then it improved. So it took 4 seasons before the Oklahoma State defense was better statistically than pre-Jim Knowles. What is that worth? Is that going to repeat itself? Is history going to repeat itself? Not necessarily. It's just worth noting. It's something I pointed out in looking at Jim Knowles' defensive efforts at Oklahoma State, and I'm sure others have as well. All right, we got the real MVP on the line to talk some college football. How about that?
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
I am good. What's going on?
Well, I wasn't planning on calling in tonight, but with the lack of callers, I thought I would call in and fill the void. The Pac-12 is obviously down currently. I don't think that's a big mystery to anybody. What are some realistic goals that would show signs of improvement for them from last year?
So in week 1, with Utah going to Florida and Oregon going to Atlanta to take on Georgia, if Oregon can be respectable, not get blown out, and Utah can win, that's one big statement against 2 power programs, brands in the SEC. I don't know if you were online when Will and I were going through the Pac-12 non-conference games, but when you start to go through their non-conference games and who they play in the Mountain West, I see them headed toward another sub-500 season against basically the Power 5 and add on the Mountain West.
That's not good, Mark.
It doesn't look good to me.
Is there any reason to be optimistic for the future of the Pac-12? Any silver lining?
There are silver linings for individual programs in the Pac-12, but that all involves leaving the Pac-12. For the Pac-12 itself in football, I don't see a silver lining. I see survival. I see a way to survive, but I don't see a way to survive and succeed and be relevant. I don't know where they go to get those programs. Those programs don't exist. Even if they are able to maintain Oregon and Washington, okay, they're at 10, but they're severely diminished. They're already the worst. Then they lose their historically best program and then one of their top 4. And there's no one for them to bring in that's going to. Now, I would still try if I was the Pac-12 commissioner. I'd still be out trying to get Fresno State and San Diego State, but that's not going to do it. I hate to be hopeless, but I'm not finding the path.
What about Boise State? Could they try to get them?
Well, they could. So this is where the argument that we often have with our buddy Tony Altimore kind of takes off, which, we all talk football here. So is Boise State a great ad from a football standpoint? Absolutely. They're better than 2/3 of the teams in the Pac-12 most of the time. Yes, absolutely. You would, if all you did was think football, you would go get San Diego State, Fresno State, and Boise State like that. But I don't know how much the media size, the market size, and the academics plays into it. And by all indications, Boise State does not stack up in those. They don't bring value to the Pac-12 academically or in terms of market size. There's no population there.
Well, I was watching some of the Pac-12 media days, and I heard the commissioner, and he said geography is important for the Pac-12 if they added any future teams. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I found it perplexing myself. What do you think about that?
So I guess what he's telling us is if the ACC gets picked apart, they're not going to run out and grab Wake Forest and Virginia to play in the Pac-12. That's what I take from that.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
If college football continues to become nationalized with conferences that extend from coast to coast and all over the place, then they would need to follow suit and go that route to try to just, again, make the conference more viable and add programs that can, like in Wake Forest case, do they move the needle? Really, no. But they can be a good football program like they have been and add football value. But again, I don't know if that is the biggest priority. I don't believe it is.
I don't think so either. I think it's been evident for a while that their play has been declining over as a whole for a long period of time. I know this may be radical, but could they be relegated to the group of five eventually if they just keep being so bad or below it?
So I don't know if you saw the segment we had. Tony Altimore jumped on here a couple shows ago to explain what the Power Five actually is. So there is a technical Power Five term, and it has more to do with the status of these conferences, and it's not something that can be easily changed. So technically, the Pac-12 will continue to be, or the Pac-10 will continue to be a Power Five conference. Now, what college football does, they don't have to recognize that. They can say, your conference is diminished. We're not giving you an automatic seat at the table at the college football playoff, and we make our own decisions. So this, I know what you mean. The Power Five label, there is a true Power Five designation versus what we think of it in football.
Right. I'm just talking about it from the football side.
Talking about from a football standpoint, of course they can lose their status.
Right. Like I'm saying, if you had guaranteed playoff spots, could you form it in such a way where the Pac-12 doesn't get one?
Absolutely.
And what are the odds you think that happens if they keep playing at this level?
I think they're rather high.
Okay. And do you think the Big 12 is in a similar position?
No. Not as compromised as the Pac-12. No. Now, I say that based on football judgment. We don't know what kind of deals are made because of TV contracts and all of that. And if we've got a 12 to 16 team playoff, the networks might be okay, especially since the networks have contracts with the Pac-12 to say, even though realistically this is not a Power Five conference in terms of football value anymore, their champion's still going to be a top 15 team in the country. Therefore, we're Fox and ESPN will continue to be in contract with the Pac-12, so they may push to say we still want a Pac-12 champion to be eligible for the playoff, or in an expanded playoff be given an automatic place in the playoff. So I could see that happening.
I could see that too, but if it's about the money, as everybody's talking about, and the size of the fan bases and how much eyeballs are watching it, I mean, yeah, I could see an executive or somebody saying we can have Washington or the playoffs, or we can have a Texas A&M. You know, I feel like Texas A&M would win that in terms of the viewership. Now, I don't know for sure, or Oklahoma or Texas. But, I mean, we're getting to the point where we could have a 12 or 16 team playoff, and the Pac-12 doesn't have one of the 12 best teams.
Sure.
I mean, and it's not crazy. I mean, we could argue last year with Utah, they had 3 losses. Now, I mean, I know they took Ohio State down to the wire, but Ohio State didn't have their 3 best players, which, that matters. So you can easily make an argument Utah wasn't one of the 12 best teams. They were a great team, but they were probably in the same place as Iowa, Ole Miss, or not Ole Miss, Iowa, Kentucky, Arkansas, those types of teams.
Yeah. It's tough to argue that.
And also they moved their the Pac-12 title game from a Saturday to a Friday because of the lack of viewership it was getting.
I believe they've always played a Friday night game.
Okay. And do you think that's helped the Pac-12 out, that move?
Based on the TV ratings, no. But we also have to consider that. So the Pac-12 is the only major conference championship game that does not have competition. The Big 12 plays at noon on Saturday, and there's a bunch of Sun Belt and American Conference and other games being played. And then the SEC kicks off at 4:30, and there's still the leftovers of those noon games being played. And then the Big Ten and the ACC go head-to-head that night. And those games all rate better, save the ACC at times, but certainly the Big Ten and the SEC, of course. And then the Big 12 rank and rate better than the Pac-12 championship game, even though the Pac-12 championship game is being played against nothing. I think the MAC championship game's on Friday night as well, but no other power conference game. So that shows you something right there. But we also have to consider that since 2017, trying to think if there's an exception in there, none of those games had a playoff appearance on the line.
Well, that's not going to change anytime soon. I have a feeling. Unless they expand it. But I'm going to assume they keep it to 4 until I hear something different. Until 2025.
And you do see a conference championship game take a big hit if it doesn't mean a playoff spot. Like the ACC last year, Pitt, Wake Forest, neither team's going to make the college football playoff. People aren't watching.
Yeah, I get that, but that's really just the fault of the Pac-12 for not being good enough over a consistent period of time.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's getting to the point, Mark, where I think if you are a one-loss Pac-12 team, you're eliminated from the college football playoff.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Yeah, if Utah lost to Florida in week 1, and let's say Florida's 8-4, which I feel like is reasonable.
Yep.
If they go 11-1, I don't think they're getting in.
Well, if you've got 2 teams in the SEC and then you've got the Big 10 champion and the ACC champion or a Big 12 champion, of course, no, they're not getting in.
Well, you didn't even include Notre Dame in that.
Yeah.
Who, even if they just beat Clemson or Ohio State, one of those two, I feel like they get the nod over Utah.
Yeah, well, that's a intriguing comparison, a 10-2 Notre Dame that would have a couple good wins against a Utah team that if Utah doesn't beat Florida, then they've got a USC game and a Pac-12 championship game to try to lift up their resume. And that's not much.
Right, and it could be like a Cincinnati situation last year where we thought they would beat SMU twice. for most of the season to have 2 top 25 wins, because they could go throughout their entire schedule and be a top 10 USC team, then turn around and beat a top 10 USC team again. Something like that, but I don't know how impressive it is to beat the same team twice versus 2 different teams.
Generally looks better to beat other teams because you've already proven to beat the first team.
Yeah, I got you. Well, and something that also helps for Utah was they need style points, is if they lose to Florida. You can't do what Oregon did last year. And I understand they lost multiple games, but when they lost to Stanford, they were just struggling against everybody. I mean, I think they played Arizona, and they were at home, and they were only up 5 points in the fourth quarter. That's unexcusable.
Yeah, you have to be a narrow path. They have a narrow path, a more narrow path than anybody else. There's no question about that.
Right, and it's because of the conference they play in.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they come into the season down a strike or 2, and it shouldn't be that way. I don't believe it should be that way. I believe we should be taking these teams with a clean slate to start the season, but that's not the way it works. That's not people's perception.
Well, I agree with that 100%, but even if you look at this season, I mean, you said it yourself, you think they're going to go 500 against the Mountain West. I mean, that's going to put them down the same peg or 2 as before.
But those results have yet to be made. I'm talking about they come into the season with a perception problem. Oh. And the playoff committee would tell you that has nothing to do with their selections. It does. The Pac-12 is playing from behind, unfortunately. They shouldn't be, but they are.
Oh, I agree with that, but I'm just saying if you're projecting out this season, which is what we're doing currently, they're going to naturally fall a peg or 2 behind. Unless something crazy happens where Utah and Oregon both win, because winning cures all. So if they win a few good games, like Washington beats Michigan State, Oregon beats Boise State and Fresno State, they can turn around the narrative pretty quickly. But I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, I know it's projection, but that's all we can do right now until they get on the field and play the games.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Pac-12, they are on a run of losing the games that you just brought up. I'm not talking about the Power 5 games, but I'm talking about these games in the upper tier of the Mountain West. San Diego State and Fresno State are routinely winning games against the Pac-12.
Yeah, I've been reading the chat as we've been talking. Tim wants to join into this call.
Oh, he's coming.
And he wants to explain to me, well, can you put him on the same screen as me?
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Hello, Tim.
I don't think of doing that, but here we go. We got Tim here. Hey, Tim.
Hello. God, what am I listening to? This is hurting my ears.
I'm sorry, Tim.
We're talking about the perception of what we think the committee will think about in goodness gracious November, December, and then you, Mark, didn't you just say that you don't predict games 4 months in advance? You're not moronic enough to do that?
No, I'm not.
So we're talking about the perception of a committee, and this goes back to what I know the SEC doesn't want it. Why we should get rid of this stupid freaking committee and have people play in, because then I'm hearing, well, if they're a one-loss team, there's a one-loss ACC team. We know the ACC is better, so we're going to give it to the ACC. I can't think of a more backwards argument than that. Are we going back? Why don't we just go back to the BCS if we want people to decide who's the best? I mean, forget that. Skip the BCS. Let's just go back to polling, because nobody plays the same schedule. If everybody played the same teams, this would be a very easy thing. But when you don't play the same teams in the same order, getting Ohio State at the beginning of the season, it's a lot different than getting Ohio State at the end of the season last year. The game is so dynamic, and I keep hearing this this idea that the Pac-12 is buried and they're lost. What are they doing? Darrell wants to put them into the group of 5. I mean, you're still looking at 2 great programs over the past couple of years in Oregon and Utah. I don't know what this conversation is really, where it's going. Someone help me out with what I just said.
What do you define as great program? Because those are what I'm hearing as top 15 programs. They're not national championship contenders.
There have only been a couple national championship contenders, and it's usually been Bama, Clemson, and Georgia. That's been your contenders.
Can they make the playoffs once every 3 years?
State.
I just want them to make the playoffs.
They haven't been a contender since Urban Meyer. Am I wrong, Mark? Am I wrong?
Ohio State's not been a contender for the national championship since Urban Meyer?
A contender, yeah. Like going to go up against any of those teams. Do you think that Ohio State could have beat any of the last 4 national champions with those teams?
Did I miss 2020?
Hang on, Daryl, I had a question.
Well, I do think that Ohio State had arguably the best team in the country in 2019. I think they got ripped off in a playoff game. And then in 2020, they did beat Clemson by 3 touchdowns and appear in the national championship game.
But how did that go in the national championship game?
They got whipped.
So they weren't really a contender, right, Mark? Would you agree?
So nobody was a contender that year.
No, there was a champion. I mean, if they lost by 7 points,
if you win a playoff game,
that'd be a contender because they were in the game. They were never in that game
by 3 or 4 touchdowns against Clemson, and then you really get hammered with COVID and injuries in the national championship game, and that's not an excuse; it's just the truth. I consider Ohio State to be a contender for the national championship over the playoffs.
Can I ask him a question?
But anyway,
to me, it's really been like Alabama.
So anyway,
Georgia, LSU. I don't see Oklahoma. I don't see anyone really. Oklahoma or Ohio State beating those teams.
Well,
Tim, I've got a question.
I'll only make one statement and then I'll cut you guys loose. The only difference between Oklahoma and Ohio State is Ohio State has won games in the playoff. They've won 3 games in the playoff. Oklahoma's never won a game in the playoff.
This is an argument about Lincoln Riley. I'm just talking about Ohio State right now.
Ohio State's also been competitive in the playoff, and Oklahoma is not. So there's a big difference there. But anyway, you guys get back to the Pac-12.
Well, I'm gonna get back to Ohio State. Well,
hold on, Tim. I've got a question. Was Michigan a contender last year for the national champion?
No, they got smoked by Georgia.
Okay. So you're saying the 3rd best team in America wasn't a contender for the national champion?
Very rarely do you have more than 1 or 2 national champions. We've done that. If you want to do a little look over the past, 50 years, very rarely are there more than 2 people that really have a legitimate gripe, a real gripe.
So to take your argument, Tim, you're pushing Utah and Oregon and Washington even further away from being legit teams and programs. If you're saying Ohio State's not even...
Let's talk about Utah. Didn't Utah lose on a last-second field goal to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
Yes, this is true. Yes.
And didn't Oregon beat OSU at home without their best defensive player?
Yes.
I mean, I keep hearing that you guys are burying these schools like they're nothing. And it just, I'm sorry, it's comical to me.
Out of conference.
Huh?
I'm
not talking about the bottom of the conference, Mark. I'm talking about Utah. I'm talking about Oregon. I'm talking about coming forward, USC. You'll see USC over the next 2 years.
When Mark brings up the 3-19 number, that's talking about the entire conference. That's not talking about the bottom of it.
No,
that's the entire conference.
You guys are just dismissing Oregon and Utah. Yes, you were.
I'm not dismissing them. I'm not putting them in an elite category.
Elite
There's a difference. They're not elite.
I've been watching college football long enough to know that there are only usually a couple elite teams every year.
They're not a top 5 program. They're not top 5.
Excuse me.
They're not top 10.
Why do you keep talking over me?
I'm sorry. It's hard to get in a word with 3 people on the mic at the same time. I apologize, Tim.
I'm out. You guys go.
Very rarely are there more than 1 or 2 elite teams in a year. We've had a very special case, one that I've really never seen in my lifetime, which is Alabama, who's winning a national championship every couple of years. This is very rare. You take them out of the equation, and nobody's running college football. Nobody. How many national championships does Ohio State have over the past 20 years? 1.
2.
2? Okay, 2. That's right. Okay, 2. 2. Over the past, I mean, nobody's running this thing. If we're talking about if the benchmark is winning in the playoffs, Oregon won a game in the playoffs. If going to the playoffs is the benchmark, Washington has been in the playoffs as of 2016. So, I mean, I'm just totally lost. Yes, the Pac-12 sucked the last couple of years, but you know what? You have a very rare situation, and anyone that follows football knows this, is that Washington lost Peterson. They were way up there. They were a pretty damn good program, but they lost Peterson, and they got a bad coach. That happens.
Tim, do you think that there's a program in the Pac-12 that's been on Ohio State's level in the last 10 years?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
But that doesn't. But Mark, how many teams out of the 120? How many teams are now? I keep adding on these FCS schools. How many of those teams could say that they've been up on Ohio State's level for the past 10 years?
3.
Okay, so what kind of benchmark is that?
4.
What kind of benchmark is that then?
That's an elite level, and the Pac-12 does not have an elite program.
Ohio State has been winning the Big Ten for a long time. And when Urban Meyer was there, I think they were elite. I haven't seen that kind of I have not seen an Ohio State team where I went, this team's going to win the national championship in quite some time.
So hold on. I haven't said anything in a while. So you're saying under Ryan Day, they haven't been elite. Is that what you're saying?
Are we going to play this game of what elite is? I mean, we all have our own different definitions.
They won 90% of their games.
Dude, why do you keep talking over me?
I'm sorry, man. It's hard.
Dude. So what I'm trying to say to you is elite to me means you're better than everyone else in college football.
Oh, so there's only one elite team then in your eyes.
There's elite and there's very good. No, because last year we had 2 elite teams. Sorry. Because you had Georgia and Alabama, and then you keep flipping a coin, see who wins that game. I bet you they played 10 games to go 5-5. So I mean, they were both elite, but I don't put Michigan in that category. Those 2 teams, no way.
So if you win a New Year's Six bowl, you're not elite.
No. Why does that make you elite?
Because you're one of the best teams in the country.
So then USC's been elite in the last like 6-7 years?
They had one good season.
No, you just opened up your can of worms. So that means Utah's elite too, right? And that also means that, so USC, Washington,
Utah's never won a New Year's Six game.
Won?
Or
I said
win.
He
During the
didn't
time
say
frame that
won.
we're talking about.
He said in. He didn't say win.
I said win. I meant win. If I didn't say win, I'm sorry, but I meant win.
I'm pretty sure you said we're in a New Year's Six bowl.
I meant win. If I didn't say win, I'm sorry, but I meant win.
Let's rewind it then. USC's elite then because they won the Rose Bowl over Penn State. And that also makes Oregon elite because they won a Rose Bowl.
Tim.
Well, if you're saying in those seasons they were elite, then yes. But we're not talking about those seasons in the past. We're talking about.
We should all just say forget it. We're not good enough. You know, the Reals told us our place in college football. We'll be lucky if we ever win a game again, Pac-12. So
I did not say that. I did not say that.
Sure sounds like it, man.
No, I'm just saying if you want to be elite, you've got to win a New Year's Six bowl game.
You wanted to relegate the Pac-10 to Group of 5 status because they've had 3 bad years. How long have you been watching football, man?
I mean, let's not try to undermine how bad these years have been. I mean, they've been atrocious. And if we're talking about the trajectory of the Pac-12, it's not going up. It's going down with USC and UCLA leaving.
How do you know that, man? They're still in the Pac-12 for 2 more years.
Well, USC and UCLA are leaving, so I'm going to project they are going to take a step back. If that's what I know is going to happen in the future, so I've got to take that into account.
How do you know that Oregon's going to take a step back?
I don't, but how do I know they're going to take a step forward?
How do you know Utah's going to take a step back?
I don't, but how do you know if they're going to take a step forward?
You just told us that the Pac-12 is taking a step back.
Yes, because they're losing USC and UCLA. They're
USC,
losing two great programs.
USC, you say haven't done anything for the Pac-12 lately. It's been Oregon and Utah. They've been doing very well.
Weren't you the guy that said
we're talking they lost at a last second field goal? Otherwise, there'd be a whole different conversation right now. Yeah, you play the game. It's how it's done. But let's not bury it like Ohio State just walked through the Pac-12 last year. They didn't. Matter of fact, technically, the Pac-12 outscored Ohio State last year. If you take those two games. So, I mean, you guys can do what you want. I mean, I'm used to the badgering of the Pac-12. It happens all the time. But, you know, go for it. It's just sometimes it gets comical to me. That's all.
Well, Tim, I appreciate you defending your conference, man. I really do.
No, I'm not defending my conference. I'm talking logically as a football fan.
Fine. I'll reframe it. You're doing what you think is right and defending your logical worldview. Is that better?
I'm hearing people who I'm hearing people say that that a team literally, Mark, that beat your team last year is just G5 level.
So are we going to say we're going to take one game from one team and say, since Oregon beat Ohio State, that the Pac-12 is elite? Can we say Texas A&M's elite since they beat Alabama and just forget their losses?
You keep throwing up these like straw man arguments.
I'm just trying to understand your logical consistency.
I'm saying they're not G5, man.
Well, if you take the top of the programs, then they're not. But if you got to include the bottom, like Arizona, you got to take it all.
Or like the SEC has to include like Kentucky.
Well,
right?
Vanderbilt. Kentucky's a top 20 school.
You guys have had a couple good years, dude. That does not make you guys a football school. Please stop.
No, man. I said top 20. I didn't say football school. I just said we're a top 20 team right now.
You guys had a couple years where you've been in the top 20. You guys are not a top 20 football school.
Not all time. Just right now, we're a top 20 school. You don't think we're top 20?
Tim, we are talking about what's going on right now.
Well, see, here's the point. We are talking about what's going to happen in 2023, not 2020, in 2022. Not what happened in 2020, 2019. We're talking about next year, this coming season. This was a preview for what's happening this year. And all I'm hearing about is the fact that you guys think that for some reason that Oregon's not going to represent, that Utah's not going to represent. And I'm telling you, you guys are both wrong. Because they are going to have great seasons. I will predict that I bet you all three, including USC, has a better season than your top 20 Kentucky.
That might be true. But Kentucky might still be a top 20 team.
And, you know, you don't have to be the best conference to win a national championship. And that's my biggest argument. It's like you guys are talking about, well, you know, because of perception of the Pac-12, you know, an 11-1 team shouldn't get into the playoffs. That's the whole reason why we should have auto bids. If you win your conference and you're ranked within, let's say, I don't know, the top 15, let's make like a floor for it. You should be in the playoffs, period. Because the playoffs are really only between two teams, and then the 3 and 4 just to make sure that we didn't screw it up by the first two teams, which has happened in the history. That third team sometimes gets screwed out of it.
So you wouldn't want Georgia last year in the playoffs?
I think you should win your conference. I think you should win your conference. If you want to be a national champion, you shouldn't say that someone else is a champion of your own conference. Yeah. I think you should win your own conference. Pretty much. Do you know in the history of college football, you have to win your conference to be a national champion?
We have quite a few people here waiting. So the real MVP was on here first. So the real, we appreciate you. We're going to let you go. Tim, you can hang on if you'd like. I don't know what the next caller is going to go.
We have a sensible SEC guy. We have Jeff Grimm. He's sensible.
Jeff Grimm is next.
Hey guys,
Jeff, what are you doing tonight?
What's up, Jeff?
Well, I wanted to call in, but Tim kind of stole my thunder. I'm a Bama fan, okay? So, I mean, the rest of the conferences really don't affect me, but I do find it funny how everybody says, well, the Pac-12, you know, they're the 5th best team or conference, and they're not that great. But, you know, you take Texas and Oklahoma out of the Big 12, and who does the Big 12 have? When was the last time a Big 12 team won a national championship? Okay, but you look at the Pac-12, you've had Oregon play for 2 in the last 10 years. You've had Washington win 1 in the last 30. You've had all of their teams in the top 10 at one point in the last 30 years. Can we say that about the Big 12 at all? I don't ever remember Iowa State finishing a year where they've been in the top 10. You look at Kansas, they had 1 year under what was it, Mangino, who in 2007 they were pretty good. But I mean, in all honesty, how is the Big 12 better than the Pac-12 when the Big 12 has no teams that have ever really done anything?
It's not over the period of time that you're talking about, but right now the Big 12 is better than the Pac-12. But over the course of the time you're looking at, it's not. Pac-12 better.
Let's just look at the last 10 years.
Both can be true.
The last 10 years, you've had Washington play in the playoffs and you had Oregon play for 2 national championships. When is the Big 12, if we keep the same criteria up right now, when's the Big 12 going to make it into a playoff?
When are they going to win a game?
Yeah. When are they?
Oregon won. Oregon won 1 game.
I mean, and you think about it, you're talking about the Big 12 being so good. Well, Oklahoma's your best team, and they couldn't even win a playoff game. So really, what chance does Oklahoma State have? What chance does Baylor have?
I mean, how many teams have made it from the ACC, right? You got Clemson and FSU. That 2? Am I right? You take Clemson out. I mean, what's so special about the ACC? You take Ohio State out. What's so great about the Big 10? You take out Oklahoma. What's so great about the Big 12? It's kind of what I'm saying. And it's not the Pac-12's fault that Washington and Oregon and USC have let down the Big 10, because those are the 3 top teams in the conference.
And let's be honest about Ohio State. Ohio State in the last 20 years is just a little bit better than Michigan in the fact that they win a whole bunch of games, but they don't have titles to prove it. Michigan's the winningest team of all time.
Well, wait a minute. Ohio State is not slightly better than Michigan over the last 20 years. They have completely obliterated Michigan over the last 20 years.
No, I'm talking about title-wise. I mean, they win all these games, but they have no titles to prove it. I mean, Michigan beats everybody too, but they don't have titles to prove it.
Then in that scenario, Texas A&M's no better than Vanderbilt. They're exactly the same.
Texas A&M, Vanderbilt's actually smarter than Texas A&M because they don't pay their coach $9.5 million to win 8 games a year.
If the barometer is only winning national championships, then Ohio State's up on Michigan 2-0 in the last 20 years. But there's no comparison between what those 2 programs have accomplished in the last 20 years. It's not even comparable.
All right. I mean, Ohio State is a really dominant team. I give them that. But the thing is, your last caller called in and said how great Ohio State is. But honestly, like Tim said, name me a year in the last, let's even go back 20 years. When has 3 or 4 teams really had a chance to win a national championship? I mean, in all honesty, when has there been a 3rd team? Now, I do know that Auburn got cheated. They were 13-0 one year, so maybe they could have been the 3rd team that year.
Well, I will throw USC in 2008. Now, I said there's never really more than 3, and that's why I like the playoff, because because believe me, my team's been on the wrong side of 2003 and 2008, and it does happen. But how often are there more than 3 teams? Very rarely is there a 4th team.
So neither of you want playoff expansion.
I don't see a need for it. I mean, the problem I have with playoff expansion is you're never going to get the conferences to agree. Even the Big Ten now, Warren has come out and said that he's going to back off on automatic qualifiers. So as an SEC fan, you got 4 teams going right now. We get 2 teams in more times than not. So if we go to 8, are we really going to get our 3rd place team in? Is the number 8 team that finishes last year, would they have had a chance against Georgia?
Do either one of you guys or anybody in this chat thinks that the 3rd place team in a conference should play for the national championship? That's my question. Should the third place team in any conference ever play for the national championship?
Alabama won a national championship being third. You want to go back to 1941?
Okay, but I'm asking you to be objective.
Yeah,
Should the third place team play for the national championship? For me, I think it really soils the award.
I don't think Alabama should have won the national championship against LSU. We lost to them at home. We shouldn't have got another chance. That's my true feeling. Just like last year, we shouldn't have had to play Georgia again. We beat them. I mean, beating a team in your conference championship or beating them in the regular season should mean something. You should win your conference to play for a national championship.
So both of you guys agree on that you should have to win your conference to play for a national championship. But how do you work that out with 5 conferences?
Well, then you just do, maybe you do this. Maybe you do a 12-team playoff, okay? And the 5 Power 5 conference, their championship game is their first round of the playoffs. So those 2 teams play, like Alabama and Georgia played last year for the SEC championship. The winner goes to the playoff. And then you do 2 at-large teams. And that way you get 12 teams. Or you go 8 teams and you do the 4 top conferences champions get in. And then
so the weekend of the conference championship games, you're saying this is the start of the playoff.
Yeah, let that be the start of the playoff. Like
last year, what are these other 2 teams? Where are they coming from? And they're going to just play in some stadium somewhere?
Well, maybe you have like 2 independents or 2 at large. So maybe like most years you probably end up with Notre Dame. I mean, they're usually in the top 10 anyway. And then like last year, you could have had Cincinnati. But my feeling is if you go past 4, what are you really doing? I mean, you're not adding another team that should realistically have a shot. So if you go just keep it at 4 and do the top 4 conference champions, the 4 best conference champions, wherever they're ranked.
That's not always easy to determine. We have many examples of conference champions that have resumes that are almost equal, and the committee has had to make a determination.
Right, but how many times is 4th and 5th place that close? I mean, honestly,
many times.
And I
4th
think
and 5th place in the polls are close to number 1.
No. Close to deciding which team should be in a 14 playoff.
Oh, okay, yes, okay, I agree. Well, see that. So if I could throw mine in real quick, Jeff. Sorry, I like 8. If we're gonna expand it, you go to 8. Anything more than 8, it's just a money grab for the networks, to be honest with you. And the only reason I said I want to stay at 8 because the only way I'm at 4 is because if we go to 8, I want AQs. And if people say, well, that's crap, because you know what? Alabama is going to blow out whoever gets in from the American or whatever it's going to be. But it should be the top 7 conference and then 1 and an independent. If you can do 8, but it won't happen that way. You know why? Because there's no money. It's not sexy. But then don't call it a playoff. Because if you don't play in to get in, if you're just selected from a committee, like I heard you and Daryl already kicking the Pac-12 out for a 1-loss ACC team.
I was not kicking them out. I was telling you that the committee is going to view it that way, as they have for the last 5 years.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What I want.
But what I'm saying
all
is
the conference champions to be playing in a playoff.
All right, well then we're on the same page. Because here's to me, if I'm number 1, if I'm Alabama and I'm rolling, I don't want UCF saying we're undefeated. That's not a valid championship. I want to play you and show you why you shouldn't have been around to talk. You know what I mean? That's the way it should be. And that way it's good for college football because you're not excluding, because who knows? Maybe UCF pulls the upset, right? I mean, that's what college football should be. You should have a chance if you win your conference to play on the field to show that you're a national champion. Then we don't have these, because we might as well go back to polling then. If we're going to select who the top 8 are, why don't we just pick who's the best? If we're going to go there. Oh, well, it's better. Well, no, the better thing to do would be allow them to play it and do it on the field. Because if you don't win your conference again, I'm sorry, I've never heard someone give me a good argument why the second best team should be allowed to beat the team that already beat them and then win the national championship. Because quite frankly, that's unfair to whoever won on the field during the regular season. You truly invalidate the regular season if you're going to allow a team to finish second, God forbid, third or fourth in your conference, and then possibly win the national championship. Because then at that point, it's not a playoff. What it is you're allowing for TV dollars and selecting which is the best conference when they don't play each other. And anyone in their right mind knows that the SEC is the best conference. Anyone with a brain. Anyone, Mark, I'm giving you a hard time about Ohio State. Of course, I know. I've told you many times that Ohio State has probably been the most consistent program for the past 15-ish, 20 years, right? I mean, I'm with you on that. However, I don't think that should be have anything to do with, and I've heard you say this many times, Mark, it's about how you do this year. It shouldn't be your name. It shouldn't be the letters on your chest. It should be how you played, who you beat. Did you win your conference? Good. Now you move on. It shouldn't be a bunch of TV executives, bean counters in Boston saying, what are going to be the best matchups for TV dollars for this thing? Because that's what it's going to become one day.
Okay, here's a question then, Tim. With your logic, why don't we go to a 16 playoffs? You get the
I don't like buys, just like Mark. I think buys are too powerful. It just does. I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you. I like where you're going, but you give a team a buy. I mean, anything happens, injuries. You get to see film. It's just a totally unfair advantage.
But by doing it that way, it makes the regular season mean something.
But listen to this, Jeff. Let me give you my spiel on buys real quick. I'll make this real quick. This is why buys don't work. They work in the NFL because everybody's got a like schedule, and you can make a comparison between the Pittsburgh Steelers being 14-3 and the Kansas City Chiefs being 11-7. Therefore, you can say they play like schedules. That team earned a bye. But in college football, you're trying to compare teams that don't play each other, and they don't even play teams that play other teams. So just believe me, if you look through season by season by season to determine which two teams in a 16 playoff would receive buys is a nightmare. Take 2019, for example. Clemson, Ohio State, LSU are all undefeated. Which two teams get buys? And it's like that every year. Who would have gotten buys last year? So anyway, and the teams that receive buys, think about this, Jeff. It's championship Saturday in college football. We just play all our conference championship games. Then the committee or whomever comes out and says, here are the 6 teams that make it. These 2 get buys. Alabama and USC get buys. Okay. While the other teams are playing and have to play a playoff game, the other 4 teams, Alabama and USC get to rest. Obviously, they have absolutely no chance of losing. So you take that 50% chance of losing out the door. They get to rest. There's no chance of injuries, no chance of getting banged up. Plus, they get to scout for 3 weeks, those 2 teams. And they not only get to scout those 2 teams, they get the ultimate scouting experience because they get to see both of them play each other right before they get to play them fully rested and healthy. It's just a huge advantage.
Right. And I agree with all that. I was just
fairly determined.
I was just saying, though, if you go to 8 teams and it's all conference champions or Notre Dame with an independent, where are the other 3 teams from? And I think if you have to win a conference, the Big Ten would love that because that'll force Notre Dame to join a conference.
Well, I think they should because, again, we could all go into the fact that playing conference schedules, not being able to pick your schedule is a huge advantage. I'm not saying they don't play anybody because they, year in and year out, play tough schedules. However, they schedule their own buys. They pick they're on a murderer's row. They know exactly who they're facing in a row. And a lot of times, everyone's been ever in a conference. When you match up against 2 guys and then you hit your rival, you have 2 games on the road, that stuff's not set up by you. That's not happening to Notre Dame.
Right.
They could probably have a bye before a lot of USC games. It's weird.
But I think also though, if we're going to go with conference champions, and I know this will affect Alabama and the SEC, but I think we need to set up an agreement that everybody plays 10 conference games or 9 conference. Every conference should play the same amount of games. The Big Ten wants to play 9, then the SEC should play. Everybody should play the same amount of conference games.
All right. Great discussion, guys. We've got like piles and piles of people in the background waiting to jump on. So we're going to bring 2 others in. Jeff, appreciate you being here. Tim, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for that. Great to see you guys tonight. Let's get to Jeffrey and J Dub. We'll bring them in together. And while we do that, let's also acknowledge the super chat. So Lemansky, thank you so much for the super chat. I posted it on the screen. I apologize. I did not read it on air, but I will read this one here from Jake Allison. Oklahoma State has been a top 10 program for the last decade. That's actually incorrect. But anyway, also maybe the best team in the country in 2011. That you can argue. I don't believe that's correct, but you can argue that and deserve to be selected to the BCS championship team that year. No hate to defending my pokes, and I appreciate you defending your pokes, Jake, but you are not a top 10 program over the last decade. And I can certainly outline that, but we don't have time to do that right now. So we do have Jeffrey here, and we got J-Dub. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Very good, Mark.
All right. So Jeffrey, what is on your mind?
I'm the Indiana guy.
Indiana.
Remember the earlier couple months ago?
I apologize that I don't. I talked to too many people, I guess. But we got.
You're good. But I was the one that was talking about Tom Allen and all that getting fired, and everybody was laughing. But I think I couldn't talk to you until now because of the StreamYard thing. When you're calling, stuff has changed, so now I can. But I think it's hilarious with the Pac-12. You gotta show about the Pac-12, and yet people keep deviating away from the Pac-12. It's so hilarious. But I was gonna ask, do you think that the Pac-12 will dissolve, or do you think that the Pac-12 will band together with the teams that you mentioned, adding them, Boise State, San Diego State, and all that? Or you think they'll just dissolve and go to the Big 12 or whatever?
So I don't see the Big 12 and the Pac-12 getting together for a number of reasons. I don't think their academics, their culture, I don't think any of that. And I don't think all you had to do is listen to Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkov talk about the Pac-12. They are not going to be subordinate to another conference. They're not going to merge just to save themselves. I think they're so strong in Olympic sports and academically that I don't think they're going to dissolve. I think that they're either going to stay pat with 10 schools and be a minor, lesser football conference and a very strong conference in Olympic sports, or they're going to make a push in the football arena and try to stabilize and solidify the conference with the likes of Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, 2 of those 3, or maybe another one, and jump up to 14.
Well, the thing is that I don't think any of the other teams are going to go to the Big Ten or the SEC. Maybe Oregon or Washington, but none of the other teams are really worth it to them to do it. So I guess they're just stuck in the Pac-12, Pac-10, unless they add the teams.
Well, there could be some teams leaving for the Big 12, though.
Maybe.
The Big 12 is actually in a good place. The Big 12 has protected itself by not having elite programs that want to be, or that the Big Ten and the SEC covet. They've kind of protected themselves in, we can call it mediocrity. They've stabilized themselves with 14 schools that are decent, good. But they're not big power brands that bring value to the SEC or the Big Ten. So they're
one other thing I will ask real quick. Sorry,
Sure.
Before you talk to the other guy, do you think that any teams currently in the Big Ten or the SEC, like Indiana, since the football is bad, do you think that the Big Ten will cut them because they're not making the football money? Because a lot of people have said that. I don't think so, because I think the brand's too big in basketball and just academics. But
I don't see that happening. But then again, we have things that are being done that are unprecedented. But these conferences haven't acted in that way before to kick schools out of their conference. And again, for the Big Ten especially, there is academics to be considered, and that's very important to the Big Ten. And even though the other sports don't make the money that football does, I don't see that happening.
Okay.
But what do I know? We've seen what we've seen over the last year. So what's on your mind, J-Dub?
It's just unbelievable. You're right about the Big 12, by the way, protecting themselves with the second choice at the dance. Imagine you're playing Monopoly against an opponent. You've got some conferences that, and we've all played Monopoly, so I'm not drawing an image here that somebody isn't aware of. You got some conferences that go, oh, look, I got all the green spaces. I got Pennsylvania and Pacific and North Carolina. I'm going to put my hotels on there. And when you land on them, I'm going to bust you up. And the Big 12 saying, that's great, but I got the purple ones just past jail, and I just got the reds. And I'm going to take my two down here and make them greater than your one. And the Big 12 is just kind of surviving by doing that. I mean, they may pick off a few teams from the Pac-12. The conference that I would be worried about being cannibalized, or if that's the right word, being picked at and losing pieces, would be the ACC, losing pieces to the Big Ten and to the SEC. It's not the Pac-10 or the Pac-12, which I think will survive. I think overlooking, and again, there's going to be a lot of people in the chat that aren't going to like this. They're going to say it doesn't matter, but it does. We're finding that out as every day goes by. The endowment power, the Olympic sport power, the academic tendrils that tie these schools together mean way more to some of these conferences than just what your football team is doing in September, October, and November. And the Pac-12, or if they maybe they become the Pac-10, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to let themselves go anywhere. They've got too much in common with each other. What Oregon State and Cal and Stanford and Oregon and Washington, what those schools have in common with each other far exceeds what any of those schools have in common with Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. Culturally, academically, down the other sports, I mean, Mark, you and I are of the generation. I mean, we remember when the regionality, the geographic regionality of conferences kind of told you who you were. You know, the old Southwest Conference was the 7 Texas schools in Arkansas. The Big 8 were the other schools scattered around the plains. The Big 10 were these academic behemoths scattered around the Great Lakes. The SEC was the good old boys from down south. I mean, you know, to a certain extent, that's baked into who these conferences are.
Sure. Well, J-Dub, what you're saying right there makes total sense, because I think we're so engulfed in our football culture that we actually think that these Pac-12 presidents and administrators are like sitting around all year trying to figure out and worry about, is our best school going to make the college football playoff? What can we do to make them better in football so they can make a college football playoff? No. They're more concerned with that their computer labs and that their research centers are thriving and that their endowment and their fundraising is at a certain level and all that. And oh yeah, we do have a football team and they play on Saturdays, and hopefully we can make some money from that and we can spread it across campus and do some neat things with it. But yes, we get so engulfed in our football and our football culture that we think that these presidents and administrators and boards of regents, especially at Pac-12 schools, are like worried about a college football playoff. They're not.
No, and you get a school like Northwestern or Illinois. Everybody wants to take a dump on them for their football. Well, try to take a dump on them for their academics. Go
Thanks
look
for
up
not
their
saying
endowment.
Indiana.
Go look up their endowments. Compare their endowments. I'm an Alabama alum. Okay, I graduated from Alabama, so my blood is crimson, pure as it can be. But Alabama's endowment is not even $1 billion. I mean, do they bring in tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars in football money more than Illinois and Northwestern combined? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. But you know what? Compare the endowment size. Northwestern and Iowa and Illinois would just swallow Alabama. You know, oh, Alabama made $120 million in football last year. Well, Illinois has got an endowment worth tens of billions. You know, and well, that doesn't matter. We're talking about college football. It does matter when these men and women are sitting around and these chancellors are sitting around in their room. You're talking about all the money that's coming into our university in one great big huge pile. It's like I got a giant pizza here, and we're going to let Jeffrey from Indiana take one bite out of one slice, and that's the football money, and all the rest of it is coming from everywhere else. Now the football money
that's true.
You know, the football money gets the TV and it gets the glory and it gets the pizzazz and it gets all the sex and everything, and it looks great. And we're talking about it. And we're all great college football fans, and I'm not trying to diss on football. I love it. I mean, it's my favorite sport, easily. But in the relative scheme of things, to a lot of these schools, it just doesn't matter.
I agree. I mean, my dad is a Alabama fan, and I've watched them my whole life as well. And I agree. You think that what they make on the field is more, but I mean, like I said, I think the academics and for sure is going to save a lot of these schools because of the fact that, I mean, like you said, Illinois is just terrible and Indiana's terrible, and the only reason why I root for them is because they suck, and I want them to, you know, they're underdogs and everything. I like underdogs, and I like their coach, but they make so much in the academics that, like you said, it's not worth getting rid of them. I mean, like Mark said, these schools, there's other things to consider, and it's sometimes hard to think of that when you're only thinking about football. I agree.
And I wonder what get Mark's take on the power of the autonomy. So many people talk about Power 5, and they're thinking, well, that's because they're the best 5 conferences in football. What sets the Power 5? The term Power 5 got invented by somebody in a journalism room somewhere. They didn't call themselves the Power 5. It's the autonomy rule, which allows these schools to deal with their state legislatures and to set the expenses that they can award, the money they can award to athletes that are on scholarship. That's what sets them apart. Nobody is going to voluntarily lose their P5 status. You'd be insane. And although we can never say never, because who knows 5 years ago that we'd be having the conversation we're having now anyway. But nobody's going to kick somebody else out. Look, Alabama and LSU aren't going to sit down, light cigars, and decide to vote out Vanderbilt. Ohio State and Michigan aren't going to decide to put bygones aside. Let's get Northwestern the hell out of the Big Ten. It's not going to happen. Nobody. These conferences aren't going to stab each other in the back. Other schools in the back. They're too tied together. In all these other areas to sever those ties because they don't like what happens on Saturday in the fall.
Well, guys, I appreciate the comments. More callers are piling up here, and I apologize to all the callers that have dropped off that obviously got frustrated from waiting. But Jeffrey, I appreciate it. J-Dub, you know, I appreciate you calling in every time.
Amazon link, folks. Amazon link. Don't forget it.
That's it. Thanks, J-Dub. Thank you, Jeffrey. Have a good night. All right, let's get the Oregon guys together here. Why don't we do that? We got Eric, we got Connor.
Go Bees.
What's up?
How's it going, guys?
Oh, Connor, is this the Beaver fan? I'm finally getting to see him.
Yes, defend the honor of the Pac-12, guys. Go to
throw the helmets up there.
I mean, the Oregon one's already on display. That's
there's the Beaver one down there. Yeah, knock UCLA out of there. They're leaving anyways. There we go.
Yeah, let me fix
Calling from North Albany, right next to Corvallis. What about you, Eric?
Eugene, Oregon, on site.
I just played the Country Club of Oregon in Albany, if you know that course.
Oh, I thought you were like a musician or something. But yeah,
No.
that
It's the shitty one right over the bridge over the Willamette.
yeah, I do know that course.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Only played 9. I got a 45, so that's
okay.
On course to break 90.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done one of these days.
So you have tickets to the Civil War this year, is that correct?
I do not. It already sold out because we have half the stadium. My student status. Sorry, my student status is done. They let the students get a year extra of attendance to games, and I graduated last year. So, but it ended just now, so I can't go with my student access. I'm gonna go up to Portland though, rocking the Timbers hat for the Montana State game.
Yeah, the Timbers are fun to watch, man. What is the renovation for Reser Stadium? It's not increasing capacity, is it? It's just making amenities nicer, and
it's actually,
is that right?
Yeah, it's decreasing capacity, which I think is the trend of live football, at least. So the west side is the old side, the east side is the nice side. So they're tearing down the entire west side, 153 million, I think. A $50 million random donation. I can't help but assume that was Uncle Phil. His wife went to Oregon State, so he helps out, especially our baseball team. But yeah, so they're redoing the whole west side. It'll be beautiful. I think it's going to downsize by about 5. It'll be like low 40s, low 40,000.
Well, increasingly, it's harder to sell out stadiums. So, I mean, it makes sense. There are, I mean, I read a couple weeks ago that Texas A&M is actually expanding their stadium, which is a bit non-conventional. I mean,
well, it's the South.
Yeah, I mean, they'll still probably fill it up.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be like 110,000. I think it's going to surpass the Big House. If what I read is true.
They're at 112. They get 112 in there in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State still gets 111.
Okay.
I heard because of Michigan's layout that it's not as loud as some of the SEC stadiums because it's
spread out.
Yeah.
It's like a flat bowl.
From an architectural standpoint, it looks beautiful. I mean, just a perfect bowl, if you will.
Yeah, I say that every time. A perfect bowl. Yeah, every time I
Oregon.
Every time I hop in that the Michigan stream, they have that beautiful picture of the Big House before they go live. It's like the backdrop, and it's I comment every time, what a gorgeous stadium.
Yeah,
and it really
is.
is.
I'm a fan of. I'll go to any stadium. I've been to Autzen. Right. I went to the Civil War the year before we won. No.
So that's 2019.
We won in Autzen. It might have been. Was it last year?
Anyways, you won in 2020.
I was heckled. Not too bad. I grew up in Georgia, so my parents went to Florida. I'd go to games in the Swamp. I've been to plenty of games in Athens. You get heckled being the opposing fan there, but Oregon State, there's a friendly hatred, if you will.
Sure, there's a bit of mutual respect there, though. It's not pure hatred. You guys aren't the Huskies.
Well, now that we're good again, I'm hoping it'll be more serious. Because before, you guys little brother us, but I don't know. Jonathan Smith, I bet you wish he was coaching your offense.
I don't actually. I'm good. I mean, he's good. He's good, but I mean, I'm.
So,
Hey,
so
he's
I
been
like
to
I
the-
like
he's
our
been to
stuff.
the
your Oregon
playoffs.
State Beavers, but you're good.
What'd you say?
6
Jonathan
and
Smith.
7. You were 6 and 7 last year.
I had to correct you. We were
Qualify for
7 and
good?
6. We were 7 and
Well, they
6.
went 7 and 6. They I'm sorry. They went 7 and 5 and lost the ball. Okay. 7 and
No, but he's doing so much with so
Oh, he's
little,
great,
and he's
Absolutely.
no, he's great. But yeah, I don't want him on the Oregon staff. I wouldn't.
Hey, we just stole a 4-star from you guys in the 23 class. Kelsey Howard.
Yeah, you like scrape off our dishes once we're done, right?
No, he's a top 20 D lineman.
I'm just kidding. No, they were good. The
Oh,
Oh,
all right.
Eric?
Tom.
Civil War last year.
Oh, there he is. Okay. You're back.
I mean, it was a good game, and Oregon
Y'all-
State always wants that game. And your tight end play was excellent. Your O-line play was excellent, and I don't see. I mean, you guys beat USC and Utah last year. People tend to forget that.
On
The Beavers
Cam
fans.
Rising.
Yep, the Beavers fans last year at the end of the game, you know what? When it was over in the fourth quarter, they were chanting, "We beat Utah." And, we were just about to head in and lose embarrassingly for the second time. It's funny.
And then we lose
ahead.
to Utah State.
Yeah, whatever, this Pac-12 witchcraft that we have, it's never what you expect, right?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. I think this is the year of the resurgence. I think we're back.
I do too. I'm gonna hop on. I'm optimistic. We're gonna beat Georgia. We're gonna beat Florida, and I say that with some irony. I'm aware enough to know that
Florida. I think we beat.
I think
Florida.
we can beat Florida too.
I think Utah is. Jonathan Smith is trying to emulate what Whittingham has done there. Do more with less. I think they have slightly better recruiting, maybe because they've been better the last 20 years. But I could see Smith, if we stay in the Power 5, if he sticks around, it's like the high 3 stars who are gonna stay in the program, who you develop. We have a great coaching staff that's been around. One of the best offensive line coaches in the nation, I would say.
Yeah. You guys are becoming like the Iowa of the Pac-12. Maybe not with the extended history, but like
with a better
respectable, tough, tight end driven program. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, tight end plays big. I think
comment on that, but keep going.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not ready to make the comparison between Oregon State and Iowa.
I mean, yeah.
Hey,
it's
Corey
loose,
in here.
man.
He's
Come on.
talking trash. On your dark horse pick. The dark.
Yeah, the dark.
No, only 3 darks.
So what do you we're not sitting pretty. We're worried too, but there is a glimmer of hope that Oregon's going to get swooped up by the Big Ten, or at least that we have options on the table. How do you feel as an Oregon State fan? Like, do you want to? I mean, you and Boise State would run the Mountain West. Is that okay with you, or is that?
Well, Wazoo too. Wazoo would come along.
Sure.
No, it's not, because Jonathan Smith currently makes $4 million, which is about the dividends that each Mountain West team is bringing in for football. So it would be detrimental to the football program, let alone, I mean, we're a baseball powerhouse. So are we going to be what Gonzaga is to basketball? Are we going to be that in baseball? Or I think that you hear like Oregon's not going to leave without Oregon State, the lawmakers, but Oklahoma tried that.
Yeah, I think we'll leave you in this heartbeat, man.
It sucks because right when the program's getting turned around, and I actually am of the bias aside, I still think the Pac-12 is a flashier conference than the Big 12. The Big 12 is solid. Everybody's good except for Kansas. But the Pac-12 still has elite. I hate to say Oregon's elite, but as a program with the the Slash, with the Nike, Washington, Utah, even the schools in Northern California. I mean, I think Stanford gets, David Shaw's running out of time. I think he might have, that ship might have sailed, but the relevancy of the big Pac-12 brands still outweighs the Big 12. So I would like to think that, I wish we would have just snagged up BYU, San Diego State last year, or you can't foresee, but I don't know if it's too late to get BYU back. But yeah, I actually believe Klyavkov when he says he's doing everything he can to keep it together. And I think the late night window is the valuable piece, right? Because ESPN, if they're all about money, they need, the fans that are out late partying on the East Coast, the Georgias, the Floridas, the Bamas, their TVs are still on after their games. They're still on ESPN, and those are the Pac-12 games. So those numbers, I think, are being undervalued right now from the average Big 12 fan. Not to knock on the Big 12. I think, they want to throw us in their bucket because we are where they were last year. But I still think if Oregon and Utah and, and the Oregon States and the Arizona, I like Jed Fish, if it can be a competitive late night Pac-12 after dark where fans are sticking in, I think if it's about money, then ESPN's going to give the Pac-12 a mediocre to good TV clause. I think they like the Pac-12 network. So if that comes to fruition, I think the Pac-12 takes a good ACC type deal right now and sticks together for 5 years.
Wait, did you say a good ACC type deal?
Isn't
their deal horrible?
It is, but it's still okay. Yeah, it's deplorable. So slightly better, but I don't know. I mean, we're asking for a lot here. Sorry.
No, I mean, I was just curious what you thought your landing spot might be, because even Oregon, Washington, like supposedly the attractive programs, we're worried. So, and the whole.
So then we stick together, right?
I don't know. I really don't know. I have a hard time believing that Oregon's administration isn't chomping at the bit to join the Big Ten. I don't think, we want you to come with us, but I think if push comes to shove, that's one of the biggest things. Like if I knew Oregon was going to the Big Ten, one of the biggest tragedies of that is that we're losing one of our oldest rivals and one of the most played rivalries in college football. Oregon State, it's classic. I grew up watching that game, and so did generations of other people.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think about what I said about the late night TV slot being more valuable than the Big 12?
Well, it's exclusive, meaning when there's a 10:30, 11 p.m. Eastern time slot that Pac-12 football's on, that's exclusive, if nothing else. Shoot, people in the Eastern time zone complain that, well, I'm not watching football, it's too late, I'm going to bed, and all that. That's what the narrative of the negative side of that. But the positive side is that that's the only time slot in college football on a Saturday that's exclusive to the Pac-12. So there is an advantage there, a benefit there.
Yeah, and especially like once USC is in the Big Ten. I mean, imagine if they usually slate these games because of your viewership. So the Pac-12 after dark games are not huge, they're not prime time, of course. But imagine if it was what if it was even just like Minnesota USC and it was a Pac-12 after dark game or a Big Ten after dark game. It was a West Coast. It was a favorable game to the West Coast. I think that would draw, huge is a relative term, right? But it would draw much bigger crowds than Hawaii versus Boise State or whatever, what have you. So I think that could be a big draw. It doesn't even have to be Ohio State versus USC. It could be, Nebraska versus UCLA. huge fan bases. You know, the West Coast is going to be up for it. The diehards on the East Coast are going to watch it.
Well, that's already in the works. I'm worried about the rest of us.
Oh yeah. No, I am too. I worry about you too, little brother.
No, I don't know if your situation is that much better. I don't. Uncle Phil's gonna die. R.I.P. But he died. You know, that was harsh, but like he's gonna leave some money behind. But like
he is mortal. We think we're not sure on that yet.
I don't know. With the research institutes up here, we might be putting them in a freezer or something and bringing them back.
He might pull a Walt Disney, man. He's going to go to OHSU Cascades or just OHSU in Portland. But yeah, I'm not sure entirely. I don't say that with confidence that our position is better. It's just we've been floated, you know.
Well, you've been relevant. The funny thing, my summation of Oregon growing up on the East Coast is going to school in Atlanta, Georgia. Kids had all their parents' alma mater's jerseys on. But Oregon always was the game to play in NCAA, or the team to play in NCAA football because of the flash, the jerseys. And so our generation, I don't know how old you are, I'm 30, but has come 29. Up on that. And there are these Oregon fans randomly all over the place, which if you ask Ryan Winter, like Oregon was never a big brand in the 80s, 90s. And then all of a sudden Nike was like, let's make this our experimental university where we're going to have pink in October and, you know, the neon, ugly neon green jerseys. But I thought it was cool growing up. And, you know, I think so that drew a lot of eyes and has built up.
Absolutely. I mean, Chris Olave thought it was cool. He was on record last year saying that the Ducks didn't recruit him and it was his dream school.
And those are all the kids that grew up. Those are the 20-year-olds. And now when they're schools, they remember. Like, that's why I think it's huge. Like Florida will continue to get good recruits because they owned the mid-2000s.
You're talking about the University of Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so Oregon State, that's a downfall because early 2000s, I mean, they were relevant. Early 2000s, they were very good. Beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame sucks. Yeah. Screw you, Notre Dame.
I was actually just looking at your wins and losses. You've had 9 losing seasons since 2000.
Yeah, I mean, the last 10 years have been horrible. And then experiment after experiment, that Wisconsin coach, Gary Anderson, just like was the nail in the coffin. And I started school in 2018. Like, I've been on this ride with Oregon State. And you've seen it. It's been slow, but like you have to expect that. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's been fast. To go from 1-11 to being on Mark Rogers, the voice of college football's dark horse of the year.
Nailed it.
Which I must. You had to give us that pressure. I was all in week 3 being like, we beat the best Mountain West teams. Montana State was in the championship last year. We killed them by 50. And now we're going to beat USC at home. We're going to be in the top 10. Imagine that. If we start 4-0 and beat USC in Corvallis,
you can totally beat USC in Corvallis.
The nation's gonna they'll have to rank us. We weren't ranked last year at all in the top 5.
Well, they'll have to rank you because USC is overrated at this point.
I like the USC guy. I don't know his name. But
Lincoln Riley?
No, the guy that comes on Mark's show.
Oh, Matt
Tim.
Zemek.
Or Matt, yeah.
Matt, the fact that he says that anything less than 10 wins is going to be a letdown is like, I don't care if you get Jesus Christ Tim Tebow to come down and play for you. You can't go from 4-8 and
let's just focus on turning 4-8 into 8-4. I think that's what most reasonable, and Tim agrees with me on this too. That's what most reasonable fans are saying. Let's focus on flipping this score first. Like, let's go from 4-8 to 8-4, and then we can talk about the playoffs next year or the following year.
Yeah. And Matt is not pushing for a playoff run. He is not suggesting that they're ready for a playoff run, but Yeah, I think he's high on 8-4. He's beyond that. That's more of a basement for him. But it's been done. It's been done.
When has it been done? What examples are there of that? And I don't say that in
Auburn
a challenging way, but in a curious way.
Auburn went from 3-9 to coming within one play of winning the national championship.
What year was this?
2012 to 13.
Okay.
They went from 0-8 in the SEC to losing the national championship game the next year on the last.
Was that Malzahn's?
Yeah. There's one.
Was that Malzahn was that wasn't his first year, was it?
Yes.
Oh, it was. Okay, so it was Malzahn turning it around.
Yeah.
From Chiswick.
Yep.
Okay.
So that one comes to
what LSU did with Burrow. I don't know what they were the year before, but when LSU won, that seemingly
they
came
were
out
good
of
the year
nowhere.
before.
Good, but they weren't. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. That's they won the Fiesta Bowl. They finished like number 7 in the country.
Yeah, they were good the year before.
Okay, never.
And then they got lightning in a bottle. And I mean, you find a lot of the opposite. You know, I don't know what was
Florida
LSU's.
went from 6-7 to 13-0.
Florida.
Central Florida.
Florida.
UCF. Huh. Yeah, that was Scott Frost.
So,
if only he could work that magic in Nebraska.
Matt Zimmer, I think.
Well, last comment, and then I'm going to get 2 more in here.
Okay.
You first, Eric, or?
Sure. I think
Talk
Oregon
about your
State's.
Dan Lanning.
For those who don't follow our program very well, we're gonna have a super strong O-line this year. Our entire O-line, it's made up of 6-year seniors. So that's going to be a huge strength. It's going to be the best. I don't know what Bo Nix is going to be, but he's going to have better protection than he's had in his whole career. So that's a plus. And then the other plus is all the injuries we dealt with last year. And if you look up, we were plagued by injuries all across the thing. So all of those injuries are back and healthy for the moment. So I'm hoping we have a really good season. I see 9-3. Anything above that is gravy. And I wish you luck, Connor, in the Civil War.
Yeah, thank you. I have to agree. Your O-line's going to be great. And then with the Bo Nix thing, I mean, he's not going to get rushed like he was in the SEC. And then also having the O-line. I don't know, week 1, I don't know if Georgia's all that threatened because they're like, we've beaten this Bo guy plenty. But I will say, if you're going to get Georgia, it's going to be in week 1. And they're not going to be overlooking, but they might be still figuring out a lot of their new pieces.
Sure.
And Oregon is too. Some luck is going to have to come into it. But I could see the same thing. Oregon versus Auburn was the first game 2-3 years ago. And it came down to the wire. Did Oregon win that game?
No.
Please don't do this to me.
My bad.
It was the field.
I remember
when we were up and Bo Nix took over the game, and it was insane.
Okay,
it was ridiculous.
I remember that was the game. Rest in peace, Spencer Webb. But he mossed that guy. Stepped over.
Yeah, we're actually this year. All of the players. He wanted to change number 4 this year. All the players are going to have a little spider web on the back of their helmets with the number 4 on it. And our safety Bennett Williams is going to be wearing number 4 in his honor. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
Wait, do I get a last word on the Bees? 4-0. If we start 4-0, I'm calling back in.
Okay.
And then I'll hype us up. The video I sent you on Twitter of Andrew Chatfield, he's a former 4-star, had some big sacks against Bama, Georgia in big games, Florida transfer. If he can become the pass rusher, the guy, then I think our defense will finally be passable.
Okay.
Top 50 from 150. Then we're talking, Pac-12 championship likelihood. But well, it's all talk now, so I can't wait. Your show's great, Mark.
Thanks, Connor. I appreciate
Back to PAC.
it.
Yeah, go Beavs.
All right, let's wrap it up with these two. We got Ian from Akron, and we got Duck Green together here on the Voice of College Football. Hi, guys.
Hey, Mark.
Stand for democracy in Taiwan and Ukraine. We need to stand for democracy in Taiwan and Ukraine.
Eliminating
Stand for democracy in Taiwan and Ukraine.
Maybe I don't know what we're doing here. Hello.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
Trying to figure out which one to eliminate. There we go. Ian, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good show tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is I think somebody needs to tell Tim what contender means or contention. Because while I would agree that, yeah, there might be 2 or 3 teams every year that's probably going to be worthy of being the national champion.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, he doesn't answer questions directly. So when you guys were talking about, are you going to tell us that Ohio State wasn't a contender in 2019? That's exactly what a contender is. We don't know what would have happened if they would have played Alabama that year. And if you're the second or third team in the nation, no matter what the results are and who wins the national championship, you're a contender. You're a contending.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, Ian. You're exactly right. And again, a lot of this is semantics and a lot of this is opinion, but I think it's reasonable that there is not just one contender. So, for example, the years that San Francisco beat Denver 55-10 in the Super Bowl, that doesn't mean that Denver was not a contender for the Super Bowl championship. They played in the Super Bowl. Just because they lost and got stopped in that particular game, they were still contending for a Super Bowl championship.
Don't worry, Mark. I'm not going to get mad if you cut me off. I'm not going to treat you like you treated the real MVP there. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't just, okay, so Alabama's the easy winner of a national championship that year. It doesn't mean that other teams aren't contending. Like, what do you mean? Contending means you have to have multiple teams going for the shot there. So I didn't really understand that. I really hope USC does well for the sake of Tim, because I mean, let's say they have a couple, let's even say the next 2 seasons are double-digit wins, even 9-3, 10-2, and they're looking good, and they're on top of it. And then, am I there, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, that's great and all, and they're looking good, but they're going to have to go march into the Big Ten, even if they're being successful in the Pac-10, is what it is now, the Pac-12. I don't see them just marching in there with some Pac-12 success and having the same results in the Big Ten. I just don't see it. I mean, I want USC to be good for college football. It's good for college football. You know what I mean? But can you answer this question? You'd probably know more about this than I would. Has Lincoln Riley ever had a good defense?
A good defense. What I would consider a good defense, he's had a decent defense.
Yeah, I want to say in 2020, he snuck in with maybe a 7th overall ranked defense, because that year was just all up.
In the nation?
Well, I was looking through Sports Reference earlier, and to be honest with you, I'm not a numbers guy, but I was like scrolling through the last few years, and I'll tell you what, they're nowhere near any good rankings on overall defense when you look through the years. But I think 2020 is a little jacked up just because of everything that happened that year. But I was on Sports Reference, and I know everybody makes jokes about the Big 12 just playing terrible defense, and we see it in these shootout games, and Oklahoma State kind of changed that last year with a top 5 defense. But besides what I was looking at, I kind of scrolled real quick, I could be wrong, but besides 2020 in recent history, Lincoln Riley has never had a good, like, overall good ranked defense. It's just not a thing.
Oklahoma did not even have a top 20 defense in 2020.
Then I don't know what. Well, then you're proving my point even more, I think. So I don't know. I kind of actually was on your stream, and then I just hopped over to try to look at some stuff real quick. So what I'm saying might not be accurate, but from my
29th.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not bad or anything, but
no.
Okay. So they've competed one time. They've been to the college football playoff twice. Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, correct?
3 times.
3 times. Okay. I'm just thinking of Georgia when they played a pretty good competitive game, and then they got killed by LSU. What was the other time?
Extremely competitive game. Yes. They lost to Alabama. They got whipped. Was early 28-0. They technically got it within 11, but they got hammered by Alabama in 18. So they lost to Georgia, Alabama, LSU 3 consecutive years.
Right. So my thing is, okay, they I don't know. They played a great game against Georgia the one year.
Yep.
I don't know if Lincoln Riley's. He's obviously seems to be more of an offensive minded guy. I don't know if he's playing in the Big 12 and he knows I'm an offensive-minded guy, and if I can score lots of points, I'll probably win the Big 12 championship. But then, it seems like when he goes and plays in the playoff for the most part, except that one game, they get stomped, and they don't play any defense. So, and I heard a guy on your show talking about Lincoln Riley and his strength conditioning a few months ago, and how it was just not up to par with elite programs. And it was not where it should be. And it's not going to help them compete on that level. So they can have some good years in the Pac-12. And I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, and I think Lincoln Riley's a good coach. I'm not a real big fan of the way he does things. I get it. It's a dog-eat-dog world. But I don't see them, if he doesn't get his strength and conditioning up and learn to create some good defensive programs, I don't see him marching into the Big 10 West, if it still exists as the West, and just stomping over everybody. I mean, I know they're not going to put him in the East. I don't think regionally that would make sense, and they're not going to make the East even more top heavy, obviously, right? So they would most likely be in the West. Would you think?
Yes.
Yeah. So
USC is going to be in the Big 10 West. Yes.
Right. So I know Tim's not going to like that, and maybe Tim has some better things to say, but I guess my point is, have we seen Lincoln Riley manifest any good defenses yet?
No.
Exactly. So
they improved considerably, though. He hired a defensive coordinator that took like 100 to 110 ranked defenses at Washington State and made them top 30 to 40 defenses. And he pretty much did the same at Oklahoma. He took defenses that were being ranked in the 90s and took them to the top 30 to 40 range.
Okay, so he has improved defenses. So
yes, under his direction, under his hirings, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I had, because I don't know. It's just really strange to even think of USC in the Big 10. I mean, it's cool. Like I said, it's going to be fun to see those matchups. But we already have, we got Michigan, Ohio State. Penn State's a highly competitive team, even though they underachieve. They always play Ohio State really close, so they're going to compete. Michigan State's got a great head coach, and we'll see what they're going to do. And then you got the tough teams in the West, like Wisconsin's always going to be solid. Iowa's always going to be tough. So I don't know. If he's got to get some good defense rolling there for sure. And I don't think he's going to roll in and be able to play Michigan in that offensive line, even in the firepower and that running game they have. I just don't see it. So I hope he has a couple good years and successful years in the Pac-10, because he's going to need it to roll into the Big 10. That's my opinion.
Okay, Ian, thank you so much.
All right. Have a great night, Mark.
Thanks. We also have to consider that Lincoln Riley has upgraded that roster in the matter of 6 months. So there is a transfer portal option. So this is different than what we've seen in the past. Coaches have the ability to upgrade their teams considerably through not just high school football recruiting, but through the transfer portal. So Lincoln Riley has picked up a decent cornerback from Oklahoma in Latrell McCutcheon. He has picked up a top-notch linebacker in Shane Lee from Alabama, who had an outstanding season 2019. Eric Gentry, who put pressure on the quarterback from the outside linebacking position from Arizona State. An okay safety in Bryson Shaw from Ohio State. So you can get better quicker with the transfer portal, and USC is obviously a magnet for talent now on both sides of the ball, but especially offense, because players know what they're going to get with Lincoln Riley and the development toward the NFL. And you're playing at USC. So USC's got plenty of time to ramp up for the Big Ten. They have 22, 23 seasons to play before 24, and they're going to be pretty damn good this year. All right, our last caller of the night. Welcome in, Kenneth. Hello, Kenneth. Kenneth, going once, going twice, and all right. So we wrapped it up with Ian from Akron. All right. Quite the series of conversations here. I took the tact of allowing you folks to talk, even though I had much to say and some things to correct that were spouted. But that's fine. I get to talk all the time. So all I have to do is fire up a live stream and I can talk. So I've got that freedom to do that anytime. So I try to give you guys these shows as much as possible, especially when there are multiple people on. This is your time to shine and your time to talk. I can produce a video anytime I want. I can do a live stream whenever I want, when I've got something to say. Is Ohio State elite? Yes. There is not a definition that you can come up with that says Ohio State's not elite. If they're not elite with the best football record in the country in the last 15 years, the last 20 years, the last 50 years, I don't know. I don't know. All right. All right, folks. Now, beyond that, Alabama's obviously elite. In my eyes, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia are absolutely elite. Oklahoma is on the fringe because they have had their issues in playing the teams that are elite. But all the LSU had one season, so they're an aberration because they've not been anything close to elite since 2011. LSU, Nick Saban built them into elite. Les Miles maintained it through 2011. And then starting in 2012, even though they had elite talent, they started losing 3 and 4 games every year. So LSU was no longer elite past 2011. Now they spiked 1 year. Joe Burrow, Joe Brady were elite 1 year, and it was an amazing season. But LSU's not elite. They're not elite. That to me needs to be sustainable. If you are marginal every year, and then all of a sudden, boom, you win a national championship. You were elite that year. You were amazing. You have an all-time team, but you're not elite. LSU right now is not an elite program. They are 11 and 12 the last 2 years. They've lost 3 and 4 games every year since 2011, except for 1 year. They're not elite. That's not being elite, losing 3 and 4 games every year. That's not elite. LSU is not an elite program. Brian Kelly is trying to build an elite program, and he has a lot of resources and tools to do that. And LSU can certainly do it. We've seen it. They can do it, but they're not elite right now. They're not elite. That would be like saying Stanford's elite. Stanford's not elite. Were they elite 10 years ago? Were they elite for about 5 years? Yes, they were elite. But that doesn't make them elite now. That's like saying Florida State's elite. They're not elite. If LSU's elite, then Florida State's elite. And obviously Florida State's not elite. They're losing as many games as LSU is. That's not in my estimation, being elite is not a badge that you wear and you never lose it. If that's the case, then Army's elite. The 1940s Army teams were dominant, all-time great teams. So they're still elite. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We will highlight another conference. We wanted to start slow with the Pac-12. We wanted to ease into it with the Pac-12. So we started with the Pac-12. Or Connor, Eric, Tim, we started with the best. We started at the top. Now it's all downhill from here. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. Please subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we go live. All right. Because we will be live sometime tomorrow. Probably at noon Eastern time. Billy, thank you for being here. Thanks for saying it's a great show. Roger Dodgers, same thing. Michael and others, we appreciate you all being here. Tony, Robert, Edward, thanks for being here at the Voice of College Football. Please check out the video I posted. People were asking for week 1 previews, and I delivered a good one. Utah and Florida. Check it out. And we'll see you tomorrow.